My brother is a speed demon. Every time before he goes out, I always give him earnest reminders. If the brakes make strange noises, check them first. In his previous life, he took his new girlfriend street racing on mountain roads. I warned him again. There's really something wrong with the brakes. He snapped at me impatiently. Shut your jinxing mouth. Get lost. While driving downhill, the brakes failed. His girlfriend died on the spot while trying to protect him. My brother survived. But he pinned all the blame on me. You're just jealous of her. You cursed us on purpose. He imprisoned and tortured me until I drew my last breath. My brother was taking that girl out again, brimming with confidence as he prepared to leave. I waved with a smile, speaking in a gentle tone. Bro, have a good time. The ceiling was a sickly white, the same pale hue I'd seen as my last glimpse before dying. I wasn't in a hospital. This was my room, with a faded band poster hanging on the wall. I'm alive again, or rather, I'm back to the day it all happened. My brother Ken's booming voice came from the living room, shouting, Sonny, hurry up, stop dawdling, the mountain path is tough, and if we're late we won't get a good spot, a second chance at life. Sonny, his new girlfriend, a girl with big eyes and faint dimples that appeared when she smiled, she died on that mountain road in her previous life, to protect my brother. I threw off the covers and stepped onto the floor barefoot. The chill of the wooden floor made my toes curl, sending a shiver up my spine. The stark reality of the sensation confirmed this was no dream. I walked over to the full-length mirror. 1. The girl in the reflection was pale, with deep dark circles under her eyes and gaunt features. My eyes fluttered open. This is me at 18, Stella, the version of me that hadn't been imprisoned, tortured, or broken, the one still in one piece. Stella, stop daydreaming. Come help me with my helmet. Ken urged impatiently from the living room. I pulled the door open and stepped out. In the living room, Ken was already fully suited up. The black leather jacket accentuated his broad shoulders and long legs. He tossed his keys lightly in his hand, his face wearing that familiar, arrogant swagger. Sonny knelt on the ground, struggling to tighten the laces of his boots. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with adoration. How stupid. In my previous life, it was at this exact moment that I rushed out. I blocked the doorway, clutching Ken's arm, practically begging him, Bro, I heard a noise from the brakes when you started the car this morning. Please check it again. I'm begging you. The sound was faint, but I've always been sensitive to mechanical noises since childhood. How did Ken respond to me? He shoved me away so forcefully that my shoulder hit the doorframe. He yelled, Stella, are you insane? You're always jinxing me like some cursed crow. Can't you stand to see me happy? Sonny gently intervened. Ken, don't be like that. Your sister is just worried about you. He turned and glared at her. What the hell do you know? She's just jealous of you. Look at her sour face. In the end, they still left. Then the brakes failed. The car crashed through the guardrail, and Sonny died instantly. Ken survived, but lost a leg. Everyone said he was incredibly lucky, but only I knew that Sonny had shielded him with her own body, but him. He shifted all the blame and every ounce of guilt onto me, in front of all our relatives. He pointed at my face and shouted, It's her, she cursed me, she's the one who killed Sonny. No one believed me. They only saw a grieving brother who had lost his beloved, and a spiteful, jealous, cold-hearted sister. I don't want to recall what happened after that. Those were days spent locked in the basement, cut off from daylight, with nothing but pain and humiliation. Now, I'm back here again. Ken frowned when he saw me, his tone sharp. What are you staring at? Come here. Grab that black helmet on my desk. Hurry up. My gaze drifted past him, landing on the key hook by the entrance. The motorcycle key, the one that had cost him so dearly in Sonny her very life, hung there, gleaming with a cold, metallic sheen. Sonny had already stood up. She hurried over to the desk, carefully lifted the heavy helmet with both hands, and offered it to Ken, her voice soft and sweet. Here you go, Ken. Ken took the helmet and casually pinched her cheek, his tone finally softening. You're such a good girl. He put on the helmet, pulled down the goggles, and was completely encased in black armor. Taking Sonny's hand, he opened the front door. Bro, I said. My voice was hoarse, like the grating of rusted parts. Ken turned back with a wary and impatient look in his eyes, as if afraid I might say something ominous again. In my past life, I had said, the brakes are making a strange noise. In this life, I looked at him, at the innocent girl beside him who was about to meet her death, and then, I smiled. The girl in the mirror was pale and frail, but the timidity and pleading that once filled her eyes were gone. All that remained was the desolate stillness of ashes. I waved at them. Have fun, bro. Ken froze. He'd probably never seen that expression on my face before. Sonny looked surprised too, but gave me a polite smile. Without another word, Ken hurried out with Sonny. The security door slammed shut with a bang, cutting us off from the outside world. The smile slowly faded from my face. I walked out to the balcony and watched the familiar black motorcycle roar to life below, charging off like a beast with 2 riders, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. This time, I didn't remind him to check the brakes. Chapter 2, The Phone Call. The house fell completely silent after Ken and Sunny left. My parents went out early in the morning to attend an important dinner. Before leaving, they reminded me to be more patient with my brother's temper. Patience. It seems my entire existence revolves around the concept of patience. I went back to my room without turning on the light. I sank into the soft bed and pulled the covers over my head. The darkness and the feeling of suffocation made me feel safe. I forced myself not to think about that mountain road, not to think about the screams and the sound of tearing metal. I began to recall some more distant memories. When we were kids, Ken wasn't like this. He would use his saved-up pocket money to buy me ice cream, and when other kids bullied me, he was the first to rush in and beat them black and blue. He would let me sit on the back of his bicycle and take me through alley after alley. When did things start to change? Probably when he became obsessed with motorcycles. It started after he won his first trophy in a race and was surrounded by a crowd. Treated like a star, he began to find school boring. Thought our parents were nagging, and saw me, his little sister who always followed him around, as an annoyance. What he wanted were admirers and followers. Not a killjoy always chirping in his ear about danger and be careful, and I was that killjoy. I lay under the covers for a long time, until my body grew stiff. I wasn't asleep, just waiting for a phone call, a call that would decide my fate. Time ticked away, second by second. The clock on the wall kept ticking, each click striking a nerve. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There were very few, just a couple of classmates and family members. I opened my chat history with Ken. Our last conversation was 3 days ago. Me, hey, when are you coming back? Mom made soup for you. He didn't reply. I scrolled up. Most of the messages were from me, and he only occasionally replied with an MHM or got it. I turned off my phone and tossed it aside. In my previous life, the phone call came at 4:30 in the afternoon. I glanced at the time. It was 2 in the afternoon, 2.5 hours to go, feeling thirsty. I got up to get some water from the living room. Passing by Ken's room, I noticed the door wasn't fully closed, leaving a crack, almost as if drawn by some unseen force. I pushed it open. The room smelled of sweat and cigarette smoke. Clothes were scattered everywhere, and the ashtray on the table was filled with cigarette butts. The walls were covered with posters of various motorcycles, and there was a glass cabinet displaying all the trophies he had won, in the most prominent spot. There was a group photo. In the photo, Ken had his arm around Sunny, grinning boldly and triumphantly. Sunny leaned against him, her eyes filled with happiness. That was when my brother was at the peak of his life. He had a loving family, friends who admired him, and a girlfriend who adored him wholeheartedly. He had everything. Then he would destroy it all with his own hands. I picked up the photo, my fingertip gently tracing Sunny's face. I whispered the words silently in my heart. But I couldn't save you. In my past life, I tried to save all of you, and what happened? I couldn't even save myself. I put the photo frame back in its place and left the room. Back in the living room, I settled on the sofa and turned on the TV. A tedious variety show was playing, with the host and guests laughing hysterically. Finding the noise irritating, I muted it. The only sound left in the world was the ticking of the clock. 4:25, 4:26, 4:30, I didn't budge. The landline phone in the living room rang out abruptly, like a clap of thunder. Ring, ring. The shrill sound tore through the deathly still air and pierced my eardrums. I sat motionless on the sofa as the phone rang persistently, over and over again. I could picture the anxious expressions of the traffic police or doctors on the other end of the line. I could even guess their opening line. Hello, is this Ken's family? The phone rang over a dozen times before finally going silent. But the next second, my phone screen lit up. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar landline number. It was exactly the same call I had received in my previous life. I stared at the number, which in my eyes transformed into a black vortex, threatening to suck me back into that endless nightmare. I pressed the mute button and flipped my phone over, screen facing down. I know nothing. I'm just a sister waiting at home for my brother's return, an innocent sister who heard nothing and noticed nothing. Chapter 3, The Hospital. The phone stopped vibrating. The world fell silent again. I kept watching the silent images on TV. Those exaggerated smiling faces looked both ridiculous and eerie. About 20 minutes later, the front door was violently unlocked with a key. My parents were back. Mom looked terrible, her eyes rimmed with red. Dad's face was taut like an iron plate, his lips pressed into a thin line. They saw me. Stella, Mom's voice was trembling. Your brother's had an accident. Why wasn't your phone working? The landline went unanswered too. What were you doing all afternoon? I stood up from the sofa, my face showing just the right amount of confusion and surprise. I was sleeping in my room, my phone was on silent, I didn't hear anything. What happened to my brother? My acting was superb. In my previous life, trapped in that pitch-black basement, I'd learned how to pretend. All to avoid a beating or to earn a measly scrap of food. Dad walked over. His gaze was terrifying, sharp as a knife. He stared at me and said, "Your brother was in a car accident on the Mountain Pass Road. He's at Central Hospital now, and he's badly injured." He paused, lowering his voice even further, each word seeming to be forced out through clenched teeth. Sunny, that girl named Sunny, she was gone right then and there. I played along, widening my eyes, covering my mouth with my hand, and swaying as if I might faint at any moment. Mom quickly steadied me, her hand ice-cold. "Quick, get changed. We have to get over there right away." I nodded and ran back to my room. The moment I closed the door, all the panic vanished from my face. I walked to the wardrobe and deliberately picked out the most inconspicuous gray hoodie and a pair of jeans. I didn't want to wear white. Sunny's blood would stain the white. On the way to the hospital, Mom cried the entire time. Dad drove in silence, the atmosphere in the car so heavy it was suffocating. I huddled in the corner of the back seat, watching the scenery outside the window rush past. That's enough. Everything was just like my past life. The same route, the same silence, the same suffocating despair. The only thing different was my heart. In my past life, I sat in the car trembling all over, half from fear, half from self-blame. I kept wondering, if I had been more resolute, if I had stopped him at all costs, maybe none of this would have happened. In this life, my heart is at peace. A peace as still as stagnant water. When we arrived at the hospital, the entrance to the emergency room was in chaos. Just as we got there, we saw several police officers talking to a doctor. A police officer spotted us and walked over. "Are you Ken's family?" My father replied hoarsely. "Yes. How is my son?" "He has a compound fracture in his left leg, multiple soft tissue contusions, and a minor concussion. He's not in life-threatening danger and has been taken to the operating room." The officer said matter-of-factly, "You're lucky, the girl in the same car." However, he shook his head and didn't continue. Mom's legs gave way, and she nearly collapsed to the floor before Dad quickly caught her, standing behind them. I looked through the crowd and saw the glowing red light of the operating room. "Surgery in progress." 3 words, cold and glaring. No surprise there. Sunny would always protect him. Just then, 2 officers in uniform approached, one holding a notepad. "Family members, please come over. We need to ask a few questions. Who here knew the deceased, Sunny? Have her family members been contacted? Sunny's parents are out of town and won't be able to get here anytime soon." My parents didn't know her well either, only that she was Ken's new girlfriend. The police asked a few more questions about Ken's street racing habits, all of which my father answered with a grim expression. I stood there like an invisible shadow. No one noticed me, until a young officer looked my way, his tone softening. "Don't be too upset, little girl. Your brother will be all right." I looked up, tears welling in my eyes, my voice trembling. I know. Thank you, officer." My tears fell at just the right moment, making me look utterly heartbroken and helpless. The young policeman sighed and left us alone. "Sad? No, I'm not sad at all. I was just wondering, what expression will Ken have when he comes out of surgery, when he realizes the leg he was so proud of is broken, when he discovers he's responsible for the death of the girl who loved him most?" I'm starting to feel a bit excited. Chapter 4, Consolation. Ken's surgery took 5 hours. My parents and I waited outside the operating room the entire time. Mom cried herself to exhaustion and fell asleep leaning on Dad's shoulder. Dad chain-smoked one cigarette after another, soon leaving a pile of cigarette butts at his feet. I sat on the cold bench, staring at my shadow on the ground. The light stretched and distorted my shadow. At 1 a.m., the operating room lights finally went out. The doctor came out, removed his mask, and said with a weary expression, "The surgery was successful. We managed to save the patient's leg, but he probably won't be able to engage in strenuous activities in the future. No strenuous exercise allowed." This meant Ken's racing career was over for good. For someone who lived and breathed racing, this was worse than death. Dad staggered back while Mom jolted awake, grabbing the doctor's arm. "Doctor, will our son, will he be crippled? With good recovery, daily walking shouldn't be a major issue. But he'll never regain full mobility like a healthy person." The doctor's words were brutally frank. We were permitted to visit him in the hospital room. Ken lay on the hospital bed, still groggy from anesthesia, his face as pale as paper. His left leg was immobilized in a thick cast, elevated high above the bed. He was no longer the radiant young man he used to be. Now he lay there like a bird with broken wings. Utterly defeated, Mom rushed to the bedside. clutching his hand that wasn't hooked up to and and began to cry again. Dad stood at the foot of the bed, looking at his crippled leg, his eyes also reddening. I stood at the doorway, not going in, looking at Ken on the hospital bed. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no sympathy. He was just a stranger lying there. In the following days, the hospital room became our second home. My parents took turns staying by his side, bathing him and feeding him. When Ken woke up, he didn't say a word. He just lay there with his eyes wide open, staring fixedly at the ceiling. The light in his eyes had gone out. Sonny's parents rushed over from out of town. The two decent, hard-working middle-aged couple were so overcome with grief upon seeing their daughter's body in the morgue that they collapsed. They came to the hospital room looking for Ken. Sonny's mother didn't hit him or yell at him. She just stood by the bed, watching him. Tears streaming down her face silently, she said. "My daughter liked you so much. She set your photo as her phone wallpaper and told me every day how wonderful you were. If she knew that the person she gave her life to save is now in this half-dead state, it would break her heart." Those words were the final straw that broke Ken. He began to lose his mind. He roared and struggled, trying to get out of bed. He pounded his cast-covered leg with his fists like a trapped animal. The doctors and nurses rushed in and administered a sedative, which finally calmed him down. From that day on, his mental state became highly unstable. He started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night calling out Sonny's name. A week later, he finally started talking. That afternoon, my parents had to step out for a while and asked me to watch him. The hospital room was quiet, with only the beeping sounds from the medical equipment. "Water," he said hoarsely. "I'm sorry." I poured a glass of warm water and brought the straw to his lips. He took a few sips, his eyes fixed on me the entire time. His gaze was unfamiliar, filled with pain, regret, and a hint of inquiry. That day, when I was leaving, he began slowly, his voice parched. "Why didn't you stop me?" My hand holding the water cup froze midair. I looked up at him, my expression both innocent and sorrowful. "Brother, how could I have stopped you? You know your own temper. Even if I'd said something, you wouldn't have listened. Whether I listen or not is one thing, but whether you speak up is another." He suddenly burst out, his emotions flaring. "You always used to say something, every time, buzzing in my ear like an annoying fly. So why, of all times, did you stay silent that one time?" He stared at me intensely, as if trying to bore a hole through my face with his gaze. In my past life, he confronted me with the same accusation. The difference was, that time his accusation came after I had warned him, yet disaster still struck. He twisted my warning into some kind of curse. This time, his accusation is based on my silence, the fact that I didn't warn him at all. Now he's starting to question my inaction. I lowered my eyelids, my long lashes veiling all the emotions in my eyes. My voice was soft, tinged with a hint of grievance and lingering fear. Because the last few times I tried to warn you, you scolded me for being a jinx and pushed me away. I'm scared now, brother. I don't dare say it anymore." I emphasized the word scared heavily. Ken's breath hitched. He remembered how he used to treat me, those impatient shoves, those vicious curses. My reasoning was flawless. It was his temper that silenced me. He couldn't find a single reason to blame me, but the doubt in his eyes never faded. Instead, with no outlet for release, it grew thicker and darker. He stared at me for a long, long time. Then he said, "Stella, are you blaming me?" Chapter 5. The Dinner Party. "How could I ever blame you, brother?" I looked up, meeting his gaze with sincere earnestness. "You're my brother. When something happened to you, it hurt me more than anyone. I only hate myself for being so cowardly, for not having the courage to persuade you one more time. It's happening." As I spoke, tears began to fall. One, then another tear fell on the back of my hand, scorching hot. Ken watched my tears fall, the aggression in his eyes slowly fading, replaced by a complex, weary emotion. He probably thought he was being too suspicious himself. His sister was just frightened by his past bad temper. How could he possibly blame her for it? He fell silent, turning his head away to stare at the ceiling once more. I knew I was safe, for the time being, but I also knew that once the seed of doubt is sown, it takes root and grows, never to wither. Ken spent a month in the hospital. I heaved a sigh of relief. He remained largely silent throughout the month. Even when friends visited to cheer him up, he showed no response. He had lost considerable weight, with sunken eyes and stubble darkening his jaw. The youthful exuberance he once possessed had been completely worn away. He resembled a man who had aged a decade prematurely. On the day he was discharged from the hospital, his parents decided to host a small dinner at home, inviting close relatives and friends to help lift Ken's spirits. I don't see what joy there could be for someone who killed his own girlfriend in a car accident and ended up disabled himself, but I didn't object. Like the most considerate and sensible younger sister, I helped Mom prepare the dishes for the dinner party and set up the living room. I didn't take it. Ken sat in his wheelchair, being pushed by Dad. talking with the uncles who had come to visit in the living room. He was wearing loose loungewear, the left pant leg hanging empty and swaying slightly. He forced a smile and made conversation, but his expression was more pained than cheerful. The relatives tacitly avoided mentioning the car accident, instead persistently urging him to focus on recovery and remember there's still a long road ahead. Everyone looked at him with pity and regret in their eyes. Those gazes pierced Ken like needles. What he hated most was other people's pity. The dinner began with a heavy atmosphere. Everyone was making forced conversation, with only the awkward sounds of chewing and clinking tableware filling the room. I was seated next to Ken. I put a piece of braised pork ribs, his former favorite, into his bowl and said softly, "Eat up, brother, you've lost weight." He looked at the ribs in his bowl but didn't touch them. A distant uncle who had too much to drink, probably trying to lighten the mood, patted Ken on the shoulder and said, "Ken, don't overthink it. What man doesn't make mistakes when he's young? Just consider your leg the price of a lesson. Be more responsible from now on. Plenty of good women will be waiting for you." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell silent. The words "good girl" pierced everyone's heart like a dagger. The best girl was already gone. Ken's face instantly turned pale. His knuckles turned white from gripping the chopsticks too tightly. I saw his lips quivering slightly. The man realized he had spoken out of turn and gave an awkward smile, not daring to say another word. My mother quickly smoothed things over by pouring wine for everyone. Just then, I made a move. Using the serving chopsticks, I picked up another piece of fish and placed it in Ken's bowl, my tone still gentle. "Here, try this piece. It has fewer bones." My movements were completely natural. To everyone else, it looked like nothing more than a sister's ordinary concern for her brother, but Ken didn't see it that way. In that excruciatingly awkward moment, unlike others who were at a loss, I calmly continued to show concern for him. To him, this composure came across as indifference, or even schadenfreude. He slammed his chopsticks on the table with a loud thud. Everyone was startled. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes, and that gaze began to overlap with the one I saw before my death in my previous life. "Do you think this is funny?" he hissed through clenched teeth. I froze, looking at him with an innocent expression. "Bro, what are you talking about?" I said. "Do you think it's funny that I've ended up like this?" He suddenly roared, pointing at his empty pant leg. "Are you satisfied, Stella? I'm a cripple. Sonny is dead. Are you happy now?" The atmosphere at the dinner table froze completely. Dad trembled with rage, slamming the table as he stood up. "Ken, have you lost your mind? How dare you talk to your sister like that?" Mom rushed over to pull him back. "Ken, stop this. Stella is just worried about you." "Worried about me?" Ken let out a cold, sharp laugh that grated on the ears. "She's worried about me. What did she say the day I left?" "She smiled and wished me a good time." "Has any of you ever seen her act like that before?" "She'd be happy if I were dead." He finally roared out his deepest suspicion, right in front of everyone. The eyes of all the relatives were fixed on me. There was shock, confusion, and intense scrutiny. I sat there, tears welling up in my eyes, my body trembling slightly with fear. I looked at Ken, my lips quivering like a frightened fawn. "Bro, I really didn't." My defense was feeble and unconvincing, but to outsiders, this was precisely the most genuine reaction of someone wrongly accused by their own brother in public. Chapter 6 Flashback. Dad's roar was like a thunderclap out of a clear sky, shaking the entire living room. He rushed over, grabbed Ken by the collar, his eyes blazing red. "You bastard, you're the one who messed up and got someone killed, and now you're having a fit and trying to pin the blame on your own sister. Have you no conscience?" Ken was still screaming. "I'm not lying. There's something wrong with her. Can't any of you see it? From the accident until now, has she shed a single tear? She's calmer than anyone. She's a cold-blooded monster." Father raised his hand in anger, about to slap him. Mother screamed and rushed over, grabbing Father's arm. "Don't hit him, John. Stop. His leg is still injured." The scene descended into chaos. Some relatives stepped in to break up the fight, while others whispered among themselves. I sat in the chair, head bowed, shoulders trembling as if silently sobbing. No one could see the icy calm beneath my lowered eyelids. Ken was right. From the incident until now, I haven't shed a single genuine tear for him, or for Sonny. Those perfectly timed tears were just props for the audience. I had already cried my last tear in that damp, gloomy basement of my past life. As the argument in the living room reached its peak, fragmented memories flashed uncontrollably through my mind. Flashback. The basement had no lights, with only a small window letting in a faint glimmer. I was chained to a heating pipe in the corner of the wall. Ken crouched in front of me, holding a bowl of spoiled rice. "Eat," he said, pushing the bowl toward me. I shook my head, my stomach churning violently. I hadn't eaten in 2 days, but what he brought wasn't even fit for a dog. "Not eating," he laughed, a handsome yet cruel smile. "Fine, then we'll just talk." He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up. His nails dug into my flesh, sharp and painful. "Stella, tell me, Were you deliberately being vague that morning? I was still trying to explain. Bro, I told you, I said the brakes were making strange noises. Shut up, he cut me off harshly. Was that a warning? That was a curse. You're just jealous of Sunny. You can't stand to see me happy, so you deliberately spoke that way. You wanted to see us get hurt, didn't you? His logic was absurd, yet stubbornly unshakable. He had already made up his mind. I was the culprit. I watched his contorted face, feeling my heart sink slowly. I didn't. I gave up trying to explain. Still stubborn, his eyes turned cold as he grabbed a glass of water and splashed it directly on my face. The icy water sent a shiver through my entire body. Say that again. I dare you, he roared. I shut my mouth and stayed silent. He survived. My silence infuriated him. He raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. My head hit the wall behind me with a dull thud, my ears were ringing, and I could taste blood in my mouth. I'll teach you to talk back, stop playing dead. Fists and slaps rained down on me like a storm. I curled up on the ground, covering my head, and during the full force of his rage and misplaced anger, he unleashed all his pain from losing his girlfriend, his resentment over becoming disabled, and the guilt from his own sins upon me with his fists. I was his only emotional punching bag. Because I'm his sister, because I would never betray him, because I would always forgive him. Flashback ends. Stella, Stella. My mother's voice pulled me out of the dark memories. I looked up, tear stains on my face, my eyes hollow and lost. The commotion in the living room had finally subsided. The relatives had all made awkward farewells and left. Ken was forcibly pushed into his room by Dad. Mom crouched beside me, using a tissue to wipe my tears, her voice full of concern as she said, "Were you scared? Don't mind your brother, he's just going through a lot, talking nonsense." I shook my head, my voice hoarse. "Mom, does he hate me?" My mother held me, patting my back, and said, "Silly child, what nonsense are you talking? He's your brother, how could he hate you? He's just having trouble accepting things right now, he's more clear-headed than anyone." I sneered inwardly. He just needs a scapegoat, someone to blame so he can evade responsibility with a clear conscience. In my past life, I was the target. In this life, it must be me again. Chapter 7, Testing the Waters. After that ill-fated dinner party ended in discord, the atmosphere at home grew even more unsettling. My parents seemed to have made a silent pact to never mention what happened that night. They became exceptionally kind to me, always trying to make it up to me in various ways, yet, at the same time, they watched over Ken with extreme caution, terrified that he might suffer another emotional shock. Our home felt like a vase hastily mended with glue, superficially intact on the outside, but riddled with cracks within. As for Ken, he became a complete island unto himself. He shut himself in his room, refusing to come out for days on end. Even his meals were brought to him by our mother. He stopped roaring and raging. He just fell silent. This silence unsettled me more than any hysterical outburst ever could. I knew he was thinking, reconstructing the truth of the whole incident through his twisted logic. He was looking for my weaknesses. A week later, I came home from school. As soon as I entered, I saw Ken sitting in a wheelchair in the living room. On the coffee table in front of him lay an open notebook. It was my locked diary. The lock had been forced open. He showed no expression when he saw me. Just gestured with his chin toward the diary. I read it. I stood in the entryway, motionless and silent. "You're quite the writer," he said slowly. "Every entry shows how much you care about me, how much you love your big brother. Very touching." His tone was flat, but I detected the sarcasm beneath it. But he shifted the subject, tapping a page of the diary with his finger. "From the day Sunny appeared, her name never showed up in your diary again, not a single word." My pupils contracted slightly. "You don't like her," he concluded, his gaze sharp as a knife. "In fact, you despise her. That's why you wouldn't even mention her in your diary." My hand at my side clenched involuntarily. He was right. I truly despise Sunny, not out of jealousy, but because I know her arrival was the trigger for my family's tragedy. She was the one who pulled it, but I can't admit it. I don't dislike her," I said, my voice steady. "I just don't really know her. She's your girlfriend, not mine. Why should I write about a stranger in my diary?" "A stranger?" Ken sneered. "She almost became your sister-in-law, and you call her a stranger?" He picked up the diary and flipped to the last page. It was written the day before my car accident, June 12th. "Sunny, another weekend tomorrow. Ken's going out again. Hope he stays safe." He slammed the diary onto the coffee table with a loud thwack. "Look at what you've written," he demanded, pointing at the line. "Hope he stays safe." "Stella, you never used to write like this," he continued. "You used to write, must remind my brother to check the car, and absolutely cannot let him drive too fast. Your diary was always full of specific, concrete reminders, but this time, it's just a flimsy, useless stay safe." He moved his wheelchair closer to me, his eyes burning with a kind of mad obsession. "You knew something bad would happen to me all along. Didn't you? You knew it, but you said nothing. You just stood by and watched me walk Sunny to her death. His voice was quiet, but every word felt like a poison-tipped needle piercing through me. He had no proof. Everything in the diary made perfect sense. All his accusations were based on pure conjecture, yet his intuition was terrifyingly accurate, seeing his flushed face from agitation and the frantic bloodshot veins in his eyes. I suddenly realized he knew everything all along. He knew it was his fault, knew he deserved to die. But he couldn't admit it. To admit it would drown him in overwhelming guilt and remorse, so he had to find someone else to share the burden of his sin, and I am the best candidate for the job. I took a deep breath, forcing back the surge of hatred in my eyes, and put on an expression of utter despair, as if I had been wronged to the extreme. Brother, my voice trembled, do you really have to think of me that way, in your heart? Am I really such a malicious person? If I really wanted to harm you, why would I write, "I hope you stay safe" in my diary? Wouldn't it be more straightforward to just write, "I hope you die"? My question left him speechless. Exactly. It doesn't make sense logically. If I truly hated him that much, there should be evidence in the diary, but my diary was as spotless as my expression, utterly seamless. He stared at me intently, his eyes filled with conflict and turmoil. He wanted to believe me, but the guilt inside him drove him to doubt me. Just then, the front door swung open. My parents were back. Their faces fell when they saw us standing off in the living room, with the diary lying discarded on the floor. Mom rushed over immediately, shielding me behind her, and yelled at Ken, "What are you doing now? Bullying your sister again?" As Ken looked at me, protected by Mom, the conflict in his eyes was gradually replaced by something icy and resolute. That smile sent a chill down my spine. I could tell he'd had another one of his epiphanies. He had constructed yet another, more perfect, logical justification for my spitefulness. My mother pulled me aside and stepped in front of me. My father's face was dark with rage as he pointed a trembling finger at Ken, speechless with anger. The family argument was abruptly terminated by my parents' intervention. Ken didn't say another word. He just gave me a deep look, a complex gaze filled with anger, resentment, and a hint of excitement, the kind of excitement a hunter feels when they've picked up their prey trail. He turned his wheelchair around himself, went back to his room, and slammed the door shut with a bang. That night, my mother came to my room, held me in her arms, and talked to me for a long time. She said, "Stella, don't blame your brother. After breaking his leg and losing Sunny, he's become a completely different person. He's just talking nonsense. Don't take it to heart." I leaned my head on her shoulder and nodded obediently. "I know, Mom," but deep down, I knew every word Ken said was far from nonsense. That was the one and only truth he had constructed for himself to keep on living. From that day on, he stopped openly giving me a hard time. He became very quiet, and even quite polite. He would ask our mother to leave his door open, saying he didn't want to be cooped up alone. He'd sit in his wheelchair in the living room, reading or watching TV. When I came home from school, he would look up, give me a nod, and sometimes even ask, "You're back." My parents breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he had finally come around. Only I knew that this beast had merely retracted its claws. He was using a smarter way to corner his prey. The opportunity soon presented itself. It was a weekend afternoon. My parents had gone out, leaving just the two of us at home. I finished my homework and came out of my room to get some water. He was sitting by the sofa in the living room, engrossed in a book. Sunlight streamed through the window behind him, casting a golden glow around his silhouette. "It's happening." He seemed quiet and harmless. "Stella, come here for a moment," he said calmly. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the sofa across from him. I sat down. He closed the book, placed it on his lap, and interlaced his fingers as he looked at me. His posture was that of a judge preparing for an interrogation. "About the diary, that was my fault," he began, as if apologizing. "I shouldn't have picked the lock without your permission. I'm sorry." I was taken aback, wondering what he was up to. "It's fine, bro," was all I could say. "No, it's not." He shook his head with a serious look in his eyes. "It was because of that diary that I finally pieced everything together." He leaned forward slightly, locked eyes with me, and said word by word, "You're a very clever girl, Stella, much smarter than I ever imagined." My heart began to sink. At first, I couldn't make sense of it. He muttered to himself, as if reviewing an intricate chess game, "Your diary was too clean, so clean it felt deliberately written for my eyes. If you truly hated me, wished me dead, why would you write, 'I hope he stays safe' in your diary?" It wasn't until that night, when I wronged you in front of everyone, and you cried so bitterly, so helplessly, that it suddenly dawned on me. Every word you wrote, every expression you made, it was all an act. You deliberately crafted your diary to be flawless, deliberately portraying yourself as a victim, because you knew all along that after something happened to me, I would inevitably suspect you. You prepared all your alibis in advance. His voice was very soft, but to my ears, It carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. You didn't write "I hope you die" in the diary because that would have been too obvious and would have exposed your motive. Writing "I hope you stay safe" was the most cunning curse of all, because when someone you know is destined for misfortune says "I wish you safety" to you, those words become the most vicious, most ironic language in the world. A cold sweat instantly broke out on my back. It never crossed my mind that he would interpret my actions from this angle. He twisted every bit of my normal behavior into something abnormal. He constructed a perfectly logical framework to justify my supposed crimes. In this narrative, I am not a careless sister, but a meticulous, calculating, high-intellect criminal. He looked at my pale face, and his smile widened. "Well, my dear sister," he leaned back in his wheelchair, relaxed, like a winner who had finally solved the puzzle. "Am I right?" Chapter 9. Isolation. "You're insane." I stared at him, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. My voice trembled, partly feigned, partly genuine. His deranged logic sent a genuine chill down my spine. "Am I crazy?" Ken's smile remained unchanged. "No, I'm perfectly sane. I've just finally seen you for who you are." He stopped pressing me, simply watching me quietly with that knowing, all-seeing gaze. That look was more unsettling than any physical blow or harsh word. He had nailed me to the cross as the culprit. No matter how I struggled, it only looked like an act. The more I defended myself, the more it confirmed his suspicion that I was guilty and trying to cover it up. From that day on, our war entered its second phase. He stopped all direct attacks and probing. Instead, he began to target me in a more insidious way. He started to isolate me. Mom made chicken soup, serving a bowl for me and another for him. I was holding the bowl, about to take a sip. He suddenly spoke up, saying to Mom, "Mom, my bowl is a bit greasy. Stella is still growing, so let her have it." Mom was delighted, thinking he had finally learned to care for his sister. She said with a smile, "See how much your brother loves you." I held the bowl of soup he handed over, but my hand went stiff. I could sense a cold, almost amused glint in his eyes, as if he were watching a show. He was hinting. Did I poison the soup? This was only the beginning. During meals, if I served him a dish, he would immediately push it aside without taking a single bite. Whenever I'm watching a show, he immediately grabs the remote to change the channel and says, "This show is so boring." He even started telling little lies to our parents. "Dad, I had a nightmare last night. I thought I heard Stella laughing in her room." "Mom, I saw Stella staring at Sunny's photo today. Her expression was kind of strange." His words were always ambiguous. He never directly accused me, but kept planting seeds of doubt in our parents' minds, one after another. At first, my parents didn't believe him. They would always defend me and scold Ken for overthinking. But over time, even a lie repeated 1,000 times can cast a shadow in people's hearts. The way they look at me has started to feel different. They began asking me more frequently how school was going, and whether I'd had any conflicts with classmates. They started paying closer attention to my emotional state. They no longer trusted me completely. This home was slowly turning into a cage. Ken is the jailer holding the keys, and he relishes this slow process of tormenting me. When he couldn't destroy my body, he started destroying my spirit. He wants to turn me into an isolated, dangerous outsider in my own home, someone everyone views with suspicion. I see right through his intentions, but there's nothing I can do about it. What else could I do? Go explain to our parents that my brother's gone mad, that he's concocted this delusional theory about me being the culprit? They'd never believe it. They'd just think I'm being immature, that I'm still holding a grudge over his outburst at the dinner party, still picking on someone who's sick and disabled. All I can do is endure it. I lived like the most ordinary high school student, attending classes, returning home, and doing homework every day. I ignored all of Ken's hints and provocations. To him, my silence and patience became further proof of guilt. "Look, she's too guilty to even fight back." Our relationship turned into a strange tug-of-war. I know he's still waiting for the chance to completely break me, to make me confess guilt with my own words. And I'm waiting too. Waiting for the moment he completely loses patience and reveals his most ferocious true nature. Chapter 10. In Memoriam. It was the 100th day since Sunny's passing. Her friends held a small memorial for her at that bend in the mountain road. Ken was going too. His leg hadn't fully healed, so he had to walk with a cane. His parents were worried and tried to dissuade him from going, saying the place wasn't safe and fearing it would bring back painful memories, but he insisted. In the end, Dad drove him and me there together. Mom stayed home. She couldn't bear to witness the scene. The car traveled along the winding mountain road. I gazed at the trees rushing past the window, sunlight filtering through the leaves and casting dappled shadows on the ground. Beautiful, yet deadly. Ken sat in the passenger seat, silent the entire journey, just staring ahead. I have no idea what's on his mind. Is he reminiscing about that last sweet moment with Sunny? or relentlessly replaying the horrific car crash in his head. By the time we reached that bend in the road, a dozen or so people had already gathered. They were all friends of Sunny and Ken. The guardrail had been repaired, but you could still see some dried, dark red stains on the ground. Someone had left a large bouquet of white daisies there, along with a photo of Sunny smiling brightly. Everyone gathered around when they saw Ken. Some patted his shoulder to comfort him, while others had tears in their eyes seeing him leaning on a cane. Ken simply nodded at them. He walked over to the bouquet of daisies, crouched down, reached out his hand, and gently stroked Sunny's face in the photo. His figure looked lonely and fragile. I stood on the outskirts of the crowd, watching the scene unfold. I tried my best to put on a sorrowful expression. One of Sunny's close friends, Lynn, came over. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts, clearly from crying for a long time. She looked at me and asked, "You must be Stella. Sunny mentioned you." I nodded and said, "Hello, my condolences," she said. A brief exchange, nothing more. I could feel Ken's gaze lingering on me from the corner of his eye. He was watching me, studying my every expression, my every move, searching for any hint of insincerity. The memorial service was simple. We took turns placing a flower before the photo, each saying a few words of remembrance. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and also laid down a white chrysanthemum. Looking at Sunny's radiant smile in the photo, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had nothing I wanted to say to her. I was merely a detached spectator to this tragedy. The atmosphere in the car on the way back was even more somber than before. Ken didn't say a single word to me the entire way home. It wasn't until evening. He pushed open my door and shuffled in step by step, leaning on a cane instead of using his wheelchair. He closed the door behind him with a backward push. "You know what?" he began, his voice hoarse. "Lynn told me today that Sunny was still messaging her the day before the accident. Sunny said she felt like you didn't really like her. She wanted to find a chance to take you out for a meal and have a proper talk with you." His eyes were fixed intently on me. "She also said she prepared a gift to give you at my birthday party. She said she wants to be like a good older sister to you." My heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly by an invisible hand. I had never known about any of these things in my previous life. "Stella," he took a step forward, his metal cane scraping sharply against the floor. "She always wanted to be good to you. But what about you? You didn't shed a single tear at the memorial. When you looked at her photo, your eyes were as calm as if you were staring at a billboard on the street. You didn't even say a single word to her." He drew closer, and I was enveloped by his scent, a mix of tobacco and despair that clung to the air around me. "What is your heart made of?" he asked. "Is it carved from stone?" I stared at his face, now inches from mine, twisted with rage and anguish. I suddenly felt exhausted. "I don't want to keep pretending anymore." "Yes," I answered clearly, looking at him. "My heart is made of stone." Chapter 11, The Cage. My answer left Ken stunned. He had probably imagined countless scenarios, me crying, defending myself, or even breaking down hysterically, but he never expected that I would admit to it. "You admitted it so readily, you..." His lips moved, but for a moment, he was at a loss for words. "Why am I crying?" I looked at him and asked calmly. "For her, or for you, for a stranger who almost became my sister-in-law, but whom I've barely spoken to? Are you crying for a brother who, through his own stupidity and arrogance, got his girlfriend killed, broke his own leg, and now, like a rabid dog, is shifting all the blame onto his sister?" Every word I said was like a nail being brutally hammered into his heart. His face turned a purplish red, the change visible to the naked eye. "Shut up," he roared, raising the crutch in his hand. I just stared up at him coldly, my head tilted back. In the end, the metal cane never came down. It stopped just centimeters above my head. Ken's arm was trembling. He was gasping for breath, his eyes terrifyingly red. "Get out," I said. He didn't move, just stared at me with those bloodshot eyes, fixed and unblinking. I said, "Get out." I raised my voice. We stood there locked in a stalemate. In the end, he was the first to yield. Slowly, he lowered his crutch. He said nothing, only gave me a deep look. In his eyes, there was no longer any probing or doubt. Only pure, undisguised hatred remained. He turned and limped out of my room. I knew the final facade had been torn away. The cards were on the table now. The days that followed became unbearable. Ken stopped attacking me with words. Instead, he started building a cage around me with his actions. He broke the lock on my room's window. His excuse was that he was trying to fix a loose window frame and accidentally snapped the lock cylinder. Since then, my window can only open a tiny crack, just enough for ventilation. He also replaced the lock on my room's door. He said the old lock wasn't secure, so he replaced it with a stronger one for me. That lock could be opened from the outside with a key, but it had no way to be locked from the inside. This meant that whenever he wanted, he could walk into my room at any time. Enough, and I had no way of keeping him out. He misplaced my spare house key, too, from then on. I had to wait at the door every day after school for my parents or him to let me in. I was trapped in this house, trapped under his surveillance. I mentioned it to Mom and Dad. I told them the window wouldn't open and it was stuffy. I said the door couldn't be locked from the inside, which made me feel insecure. Mom would just say, "Your brother means well. He's worried about your safety at night. Why would you need to lock your door anyway? We're all family." Dad would frown and say to me, "Stella, are you still holding a grudge against your brother? He has trouble getting around, and he's just trying to help. Why are you being so unreasonable?" They don't believe me, or rather, they refuse to believe. They refuse to accept that their pride and joy, the son they see as merely a troubled patient, is slowly, insidiously, like a frog being boiled alive, driving his own sister to the brink of despair, just like in a past life. I find myself isolated and helpless once again. Home is no longer a safe harbor, it has become an exquisite, transparent cage, and I am the bird trapped inside. I can feel Ken's patience wearing thin. He was waiting for the moment I'd completely break down, or for my parents to be out of the house. Chapter 12, Alone. That opportunity arrived on a Saturday afternoon. My parents are attending a distant relative's wedding in a neighboring city and need to stay overnight there. They originally wanted to bring me along, but I used school makeup classes as an excuse and declined. They then wanted Ken to join them, but he didn't want to go out. In the end, it was just Ken and me left at home. Before heading out, Mom and Dad gave us endless reminders. Mom held my hand and said, "Stella, your brother has trouble getting around. Take good care of him while we're gone. Don't argue with him, and be patient with him." Dad said to Ken, "Behave yourself at home, and don't bully your sister again. If you lay a finger on her, I'll break your other leg when we get back." They thought such warnings would actually work. Little did they know, once we were alone in the house, every rule would go out the window. The moment the door closed, I heard Ken let out a low chuckle from his throat. Without looking back, I went straight to my room. I closed the door, but couldn't lock it from the inside. I sat down at the desk, pulled out a practice test, and started working through the problems. I had to keep myself calm. I could hear the sound of his wheelchair moving in the living room. The sound was like a tank rolling back and forth over my heart. Time ticked by, second by second. I finished a math test and started memorizing English vocabulary. I couldn't focus completely. My ears were constantly straining to catch any noise from outside. He remained in the living room the entire time. At 5 in the afternoon, the sky began to darken. I felt a bit hungry, and my stomach let out a soft growl. "I need to go out." I stood up, took a deep breath, and then pulled open the door. Ken was sitting on the living room sofa. He hadn't turned on the lights, his entire figure sinking into the twilight shadows. On the coffee table in front of him sat a glass of water and a small medicine bottle. They were sleeping pills, prescribed by his doctor to treat his nightmares and insomnia. He looked up when he saw me come out. His eyes gleamed unnervingly bright in the dim light. "Hungry?" he asked. "There's instant noodles in the kitchen," he said. I didn't move, staring at the medicine bottle. A wave of unease washed over me. "Did you take your medicine?" I asked. "I did," he replied flatly. "The doctor said not to take more than 2 pills at a time." He picked up the medicine bottle, shook it in front of me, then unscrewed the cap and poured the remaining dozen or so pills into the water glass before him. The white tablets dissolved rapidly in the water, releasing tiny bubbles. The glass of water quickly turned cloudy, but he lifted the glass, looked at me, and smiled. "What if you were the one forcing me to drink it, Stella?" My mind went blank with a buzzing sound, a complete void. It finally dawned on me what he intended to do. He was going to kill himself. Then, he staged the scene to make it look like I committed murder. He planned to pin all the charges on me, using his own death to frame me. He's insane. He's completely lost his mind. Chapter 13, Confrontation. "Do you think," Ken said slowly, holding the glass of murky water, "that when Mom and Dad come back and find me dead here, with your fingerprints all over this glass, who do you think they'll believe?" My body began to tremble uncontrollably. "They'll believe it was you, their venomous daughter, who, out of jealousy and resentment, forced the sleeping pills down your disabled brother's throat with your own hands. They will live the rest of their lives in agony and self-blame. They will despise you for tearing this family apart, and I," he grinned with a feverish, unsettling intensity, "will finally be with Sunny again. I can tell her that vengeance has been served. I can face her with a clear conscience. That was his plan, a perfect, mutually destructive scheme. He's not just dragging me down to hell with him, he's determined to destroy every last shred of hope I have left in life. Brother." My voice trembled uncontrollably. "You can't do this." "I can't." He shot back. "You are willing to stand by and watch me die. Why shouldn't I?" He slid the glass of water to the edge of the coffee table, right in front of me. "No, you have 2 choices. First, you sit here and watch me drink this glass of water. Then, wait for the police to come and arrest you. Second," he paused, a glint of greed flashing in his eyes, "you get down on your knees and beg me, admit that you're the one who ruined us. Admit that you're a vicious woman, then. Drink this glass of water, he wants me dead. In the most humiliating way possible, I stared at his completely contorted face, at that lethal glass of water. The terror from my past life washed over me like a tidal wave. Suffocation, agony, and despair once again seized my heart. It felt like I was back in that basement again. Once more, he held my life in his hands. My knees began to buckle. The words to beg for mercy were on the tip of my tongue, but just as I was on the verge of breaking down, I saw the triumph in his eyes. It was the kind of smug satisfaction a cat has when toying with a captured mouse. He was reveling in my fear, revel in my breakdown, bask in my humiliation. A bolt of lightning flashed through my mind. This has to stop. I've already died once because of his foolishness and wickedness. Why should I be buried with him again this time? All the trembling in my body suddenly ceased. The overwhelming fear receded like a tide, replaced by a bone-chilling, deathly stillness. I looked up and met his gaze directly. I did not kneel. No, I simply reached out slowly and picked up the glass of water on the tea table. Ken's eyes lit up. He thought I had chosen the second option. He believed I was going to drink that water. I raised the cup to my lips right in front of him, my wrist tilted slightly. I poured the entire cup of water laced with sleeping pills onto the floor. The carpet was quickly soaked through in a large patch. The smile froze on Ken's face. I choose the third option, I said, setting down the empty glass and staring at him, enunciating each word clearly. I'll watch you die, then, I'll wait for the police to arrive. I'll tell them that you couldn't live with the guilt of causing your girlfriend's death, so you chose to end your own life. I'll hand over your diary to them, every page filled with those agonizing, self-blaming words you wrote. I'll tell them that until your last breath, you kept calling out Sonny's name. Care to guess who they'll believe? Chapter 14, Breakdown. Ken's face turned from red to pale, then from pale to ashen. His biggest bargaining chip, the one he used to threaten me, had become useless. He never expected that I wouldn't be afraid at all. Not only was I unafraid, I was going to step over his corpse and paint him as a coward who committed suicide out of guilt. How dare you, he growled, a feral sound tearing from his throat. Why wouldn't I dare? I took a step forward, looking down at him in his wheelchair. You dared to choose death, so why wouldn't I dare to say it? Ken, I said, using his full name for the first time. Did you think everyone in this world is a sore loser like you, a worthless coward? The word coward shattered what little dignity he had left. He roared, swinging his wheelchair and charging at me like a madman. I was prepared and sidestepped easily to avoid him. He missed, and the wheelchair tipped over from the momentum. He tumbled out, landing awkwardly face down on the floor. His leg in a cast slammed hard against the corner of the coffee table. He let out a pained grunt. I stood by, watching him coldly, as if watching a clown. Do you think death will bring you relief? I slowly crouched down, meeting the eyes of the man lying prone on the ground. Do you think dying will let you see Sonny again? You're wrong. You're going straight to hell. Because you're not just a murderer, you're a coward who blames everyone but yourself. Someone as good as Sonny is headed for heaven. You'll never, ever, see her again. My voice was soft and gentle. Every single word felt like the cruelest form of torture to him. No, it wasn't me. He lay on the ground, like a lost child, beginning to deny incoherently. It's your fault. You didn't warn me. You jinxed me. I laughed. Did I make you go street racing? Did I tell you not to wear a seatbelt? Did I make you take a chance when you knew the car had problems? Ken, just admit it, from start to finish. This was your fault, and yours alone. You failed Sonny. You failed Mom and Dad, but most of all, you failed your own pathetic, worthless pride. My heart sank like a stone. I stood up and refused to look at him any longer. I turned and walked toward my room. Stop, he roared behind me. Don't go, Stella. Please don't go. His voice trembled with tears and desperation. Tell me, what should I do? What am I supposed to do? The very logic he had built his life upon was completely shattered by me. He could no longer find anyone else to blame. In that moment, all the guilt came rushing back to weigh solely on him. The weight of it was enough to crush him. I didn't answer him. I just walked into my room without looking back. Then, I closed the door. This time, I heard the sound I had been longing to hear. It wasn't his roar, nor was it his curses. Instead, it was a long-suppressed, utterly broken, wailing cry. Chapter 15, Clear Skies. I have no idea how long Ken had been crying in the living room. I locked myself in my room, pressing a pillow hard against my ears, but those sobs, as if they had a life of their own, still wormed their way into my mind. That was my brother, Ken, the brother who once carried me on his shoulders and showed me the world. At the end of his previous life, he must have broken down like this too. Covering my ears and leaning against the door, I slowly slid down to the floor. Tears fell without warning. It wasn't for him. It was for that 18-year-old Stella, the one who would never return. It was for that foolish girl who once had eyes and a heart only for her brother. I finally allowed myself a good cry, just for me. The next morning, I stepped out of my room. The living room was in complete disarray. Ken lay unconscious on the floor, a pool of dried, dark red blood beneath him. The wound on his injured leg had reopened from the impact the day before. I didn't panic. I just picked up the phone calmly and dialed 120. Then I called my parents. I said, "Mom, Dad, you need to come back." My heart skipped a beat. I think something's happened to my brother. Ken was rushed to the hospital due to severe blood loss and extreme psychological trauma. The doctors said his physical condition was stable, but he'd suffered a complete mental breakdown. He no longer recognized anyone. Every day, he would just curl up in the corner of the hospital bed, hugging his knees like an infant. He kept repeating the same 3 words over and over. My parents' hair turned white overnight. From my calm retelling, they finally pieced together everything that had happened that Saturday afternoon. Dad didn't hit me, he just looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Stella, I'm the one who failed you." Mom held me in her arms, crying uncontrollably. This family has completely fallen apart. A month later, I took a leave of absence from school. I decided to leave the city. The weather was beautiful on the day I left. The sun was shining brightly, and the sky was as blue as a freshly washed gemstone. I was pulling a very small suitcase that contained just a few pieces of clothing and my diary. My parents saw me off at the station. Just before I boarded, my mother slipped a bank card into my hand. She said, "Stella, I know this family has broken your heart. You're free to go wherever you want. But always remember, this will always be your home. When you're tired, come back." I looked at her weary face and the gray hairs on her head, then nodded. I didn't say yes, nor did I say no. I simply gave her a hug. Then I turned around and got on the train. As the train started moving, the city outside the window gradually dissolved into hazy patches of color. I leaned against the window, gazing outside. My phone vibrated. It was a text message. "It's from Dad. Stella, no matter what happened, you'll always be my pride. Take good care of yourself." My eyes grew warm. I turned off my phone and put it back in my pocket. The hatred and pain from my past life were left behind with the departing train. Story 2. In my past life, I defied my mother's warnings and stubbornly chose the beautiful fox as my spirit beast. Yet to help his sister seize power, he personally took my life. As my consciousness faded, he rushed into his sister's arms, declaring her the only worthy empress of the Eastern Sea Kingdom. So when given a second chance, I walked right past him and chose the dying mermaid prince instead. But later, he pressed the Imperial Guard's token into my hands, pleading desperately, "You're the only one who can be my empress of the Eastern Sea Kingdom. Please don't abandon me." My mermaid lover's eyes burned crimson with jealousy as his tail coiled around me, claiming my lips fiercely. "Didn't you promise, sister, to love only me in this lifetime?" In the Eastern Sea Kingdom, every maiden at 17 must choose a spirit beast, a lifelong companion that never leaves her side. In my past life, I defied the Queen Mother's warnings and brought home the pitiful little fox as my spirit beast, yet he betrayed me, murdering me with his own hands to help my sister seize the throne. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to that fateful turning point. That little fox seems quite clever. With proper training, she could surely become your right hand someday, my younger sister remarked, pointing at Sui with undisguised admiration in her eyes. I studied Sui's pitiful fox-like eyes, where a glint of cunning desire was unmistakable. Through that face, I seemed to glimpse the future. According to the millennial-old traditions of the Eastern Sea Kingdom, as the eldest legitimate daughter, I was destined to become its future empress. Yet on my coronation day, I was slain by the one I'd trusted most. In my past life, on this very day, every girl in the Eastern Sea Kingdom would select a spirit beast as her lifelong companion and future right hand upon turning 14. As princesses of the realm, my sister and I drew extraordinary attention during our selection ceremony. Chieftains from across the land presented countless gifted spirit beasts, from soaring birds to aquatic serpents, creating an unparalleled menagerie for our choosing. The moment I entered the arena, that clever little fox caught my eye. Its elegant vulpine gaze radiated intelligence, and the fox clan stood as the mightiest among spirit beasts. Even my queen mother had chosen one as her eternal partner. Only, this cub's right leg was crippled, yet in that lifetime, I cared not for his imperfection. Having chosen him myself, I scoured the world for healers, brewed millennium ginseng soup with my heart's blood to cure his congenital defect, day after day. I schooled him in arts and warfare, from calligraphy to Sun Tzu's strategies, forging him into a peerless spirit beast who would eventually reign supreme. Receiving homage from all mystical creatures, our people whispered prophecies that he would ascend alongside me as the Eastern Sea Kingdom's next sovereign. I basked in this illusion of happiness until my dying breath, when I finally realized Sui had always despised me. His heart belonged to my sister from the very beginning. Consumed by hatred for tearing him away from her, he sank his fangs into my neck on my coronation day. Even as life drained from me, his gaze remained glacial and venomous. As consciousness faded through the searing pain, I glimpsed Sui nestling into my sister's embrace, transformed back into his docile self. With feline grace, he nuzzled her hand, murmuring, "Zephyr, I've delivered the throne you desired. Will you be my master now?" When my eyes reopened, I'd inexplicably returned to the present. I clenched my fists, suppressing both the lingering resentment from my past life and the tremors of rebirth. The maidservant Shada whispered discreetly, "Miss, the Fox clan is the most powerful among spirit beasts. Shall we choose him?" To everyone's surprise, I pointed at the most inconspicuous little mermaid in the corner, covered in wounds and emaciated. He hovered near death. Yet his eyes held boundless loyalty and kindness, if I recall correctly. This was Guyu. In our past life, when the Eastern Sea Kingdom faced annihilation, he led the entire mermaid clan in desperate resistance until their ultimate sacrifice in those waters. Back then, I couldn't help but marvel inwardly, though they were the most despised race in the Eastern Sea Kingdom, scorned by all and repeatedly stripped of survival resources. They were the first to sacrifice their entire clan when the kingdom faced existential crisis, given another life. I swear to restore the mermaid clan's honor. Shadha looked bewildered. Though Guyu is the mermaid prince, miss, their kind has always been dim-witted. Your spirit beast is meant to help you rule the entire Eastern Sea Kingdom. Sui's fox-like eyes had been gazing at me with syrupy flattery, but when I walked straight to Guyu, faint anger flickered across his handsome vulpine features. I'm puzzled. Could he have been reborn too? If he's also been reborn, he'd be thrilled I didn't choose him. Why would he be angry? Who cares? Just a heartless beast anyway. I knelt down and carefully cradled Guyu in my arms, filthy and barely breathing. He lay dying against my chest. Merfolk young can't survive long out of water. They suffocate. Some city lord must have captured the young prince to curry favor with the princess, completely disregarding his life. Murmurs erupted around us. No one could fathom why the crown princess of the Eastern Sea Kingdom, future empress of the realm, would choose the lowliest of merfolk as her lifelong spirit companion. Even the Queen Mother furrowed her brow. "Alara," she asked, "do you know what matters most when selecting a spirit beast?" With utmost care, I lowered Guyu into the pool, gently washing away the dirt from his scales. My voice was soft yet resolute. "Loyalty is what matters most in a spirit companion. What if he's merfolk? I believe he'll become my right hand, protecting both me and the Eastern Sea Kingdom." The Queen Mother gave a slight nod and let me have my way, yet the minister's whispers cut like knives. "Still just a child, the crown princess clearly lacks her sister's judgment. To choose such a weak, lowly mermaid as her spirit beast, what folly!" As Guyu stirred awake in the water, I smiled softly and said, "I'm Zephyr, will you be my spirit beast, too?" Guyu froze for a heartbeat before nodding fervently, his clear eyes shining with unrestrained excitement. As I was leaving with Guyu, Sui came running after us. With a pitiful fox-like whine in his voice, he looked at me pleadingly. "What about me, master? Are you abandoning me?" It finally dawned on me, he had been reborn too. But I couldn't fathom what had happened to make him change his attitude, though frankly, I couldn't care less now. Guyu nervously wrapped his fishtail around my wrist. As I gently stroked his hair, I coldly told Sui, "In this lifetime, Guyu is the only spirit beast I'll ever have." Then I turned and left without looking back. Soon, the whole kingdom learned I'd chosen a mermaid as my spirit beast. Families with daughters held me up as a cautionary tale. Though the merfolk are breathtakingly beautiful, they're the weakest and lowliest race in our Eastern Sea Kingdom. When you grow up, dear, never choose a mermaid as your spirit beast. Even court ministers complained to the Queen Mother. The crown princess is unbearably arrogant and lustful. She shows not a trace of the dignity befitting a future empress. With a faint smile, I paid no heed to these rumors. Time would prove that the merfolk possess not only peerless beauty, but also loyalty and courage rarely seen in this world. Within the palace walls, I built a pond for Guyu. Stroking his fishtail where iridescent scales still partially formed shimmered, I asked, "Do you like it? From now on, you shall be my spirit beast." He nodded vigorously with such earnestness that it made me laugh. At 17, Guyu still carried youthful delicacy in his frame. Raven black hair cascaded over his shoulders with striking allure, while two pale violet scales adorned his impossibly beautiful face. Yet what truly stood out were his extraordinarily sincere eyes. Brimming with boundless innocence, Guyu tried his best. Captured and brought ashore as a child, his growth was stunted, leaving his legs permanently weakened. He struggled endlessly to adapt to walking on 2 feet. Even on the eve of his coming-of-age ceremony at the palace, he still stumbled after a few steps or lost control, his mermaid tail betraying him at the worst moments. I patted his back reassuringly. "Don't be afraid, take your time. Your merfolk, land life was never meant to come easily to our kind. Guyu nodded obediently, practicing relentlessly despite his swollen, delicate legs. Watching him, I remembered Sui from my past life, a fox spirit who'd injured himself playing in the mountains as a kid. After becoming mine, he'd refused to walk, demanding to be carried everywhere. I couldn't help but urge, Xiaoyu, take a break, it's all right. He looked up, wiping the sweat from his face with a gentle motion. Starlight shimmering in his eyes, but I don't want Master to, because of me. I softly stroked the scales on his face as he nuzzled into my palm, gazing at his obedient expression. Memories flooded back, of his previous life when enemy forces besieged the city. Clad in armor, the 18-year-old fought desperately at sea, his features hardening with maturity yet still carrying that unchanging innocence in his eyes. Sister, the spirit beast's coming-of-age ceremony is in a few days. That fish of yours, can it even stand? My younger sister's voice dripped with sarcasm as she shot me a contemptuous look during the family banquet. My Sui is the mightiest of fox spirits. Should that fish fail her coming-of-age trial, I wonder if the ministers would willingly accept our elder sister as the Eastern Sea Kingdom's empress. Just like in our past life, her thirst for power is terrifying. Not a day passes without her coveting the throne, but her cruelty knows no bounds. Were she to rule, our kingdom would drown in misery. In our previous life, I yielded time and again, simply because she was my sister. Given a second chance, I silently ladled soup before speaking measuredly. With her majesty in good health, must my sister be so eager to claim the empress's throne? The queen mother accepted the bowl with a slight nod, watching my sister with inscrutable eyes. Moreover, governance lies in benevolence. Blind pursuit of power only breeds tyranny, I remarked while chewing a piece of beef. Having been wronged without recourse, my sister threw a tantrum. Ugh, that sickly fish of yours will croak sooner or later. In the Eastern Sea Kingdom, when girls have kept their spirit beasts for a full year, it marks the beast's coming-of-age ceremony. On this day, families traditionally hold grand feasts to celebrate with relatives and friends, formally establishing an unbreakable life bond with the spirit beasts. My sister naturally chose Sui, the most formidable fox clansman, who finally realized his dream of becoming her spirit beast companion. But none of this concerns me. What matters is that I am the rightful princess of Donghai Kingdom, its future empress. No one is worthy of challenging my claim. The coming-of-age ceremony for a princess's spirit beast was an even grander affair. Court ladies would attend the ceremony with their spirit beasts, but the undisputed highlight was always the kite battle. The kite battle gathered all spirit beasts in competition, from refined arts like music and calligraphy to martial displays of weaponry, to determine their true rankings. No wonder my sister cares so much. Spirit beasts are like soulmates to women in the Eastern Sea Kingdom, and as the princess, her spirit beast's performance in the kite battle draws extraordinary attention. On the eve of the kite battle, Guyu studied late into the night as usual, though highly intelligent. The severe illness from his childhood left him far frilier than other spirit beasts. The soft lamplight cast shadows across his pale complexion. So engrossed in reading, he didn't notice me. The radiant smile he always wore in my presence was gone, revealing the solitary, austere side of him I'd never seen before. I had the kitchen prepare him a bowl of almond cream. The moment he saw me, his face instinctively lit up with a smile as he took the almond milk, though I might have imagined it. I caught a faint frown before he drank it anyway. Don't you like almonds? Not at all. I love everything you make for me. Only later did I discover Guyu is allergic to almond milk. The coming-of-age ceremony progressed swiftly, soon reaching the kite battle segment. As Guyu stepped onto the field, I observed the legs he'd manifested in such short time. Spiritual beasts of certain maturity could assume human form, indistinguishable from ordinary people. I gave his shoulder a reassuring pat. You, don't be nervous, you're already amazing. He flashed me that familiar smile again, a silent acknowledgement, the court's mocking whispers, the Fox clan's dominance. He couldn't possibly ignore these slights. He yearned to silence those voices, to spare me further ridicule, to restore the mermaid clan's honor. But how could he ever compare to Sui? In terms of physical strength, Guyu's congenital ailment made recovery impossible in the short term. As for intellect, Sui was a reincarnated soul who retained every memory from his past life: horsemanship, archery, pitchpot, mathematics, zither playing, chess, calligraphy, painting. Guyu suffered defeat after defeat. What's more, this year's kite battle caused quite a stir. Even the elders admitted they'd never seen a spirit beast as formidable as Sui, so young yet accomplished in both scholarly and martial arts, falling just slightly short of the Queen Mother's own legendary companion. The crowd gaped in astonishment, all except me. Every ounce of Sui's extraordinary talent was bought with everything I'd sacrificed in my previous life. The champion of this kite battle is Sui. Just as expected. It's all right, Xiaoyu, you're injured. Yet you still performed brilliantly today. Guyu buried his face in his collar, his vision blurring as he murmured, I'm sorry, master, I've embarrassed you. I truly am the useless failure they say I am. I stepped closer and gently traced the iridescent scales on his face. Xiaoyu, you must never say such things again. Guyu's fingers trembled slightly before tightening around that jade pendant. Calling it a jade pendant was generous. It was clearly a cheap knockoff, Xiaoyu. The palace lacks for nothing. Let me get you a proper jade pendant. Consider it your coming-of-age gift. 3. He dodged away, clutching the jade pendant tightly. Thank you, master, but I must decline. Perhaps this jade pendant held some special meaning for him. Just as I was about to leave with Guyu, an uninvited guest barged in. Sui transformed back into his fox form, clutching the kite-fighting trophy in his jaws as he pounced. Admit it, Alara, you can't let me go. You picked such a mediocre fish just to spite me, Alara. I was wrong, please don't abandon me. I won the kite battle medal, just say the word, and I'll come running back to you. Sui lunged toward me as she spoke. I dodged, equal parts amused and disgusted by her shamelessness. You're revolting. So what if you won the championship by relying on memories from your past life? Besides, Xiaoyu is no ordinary fish. As my only spirit beast, he'll become my right-hand companion in safeguarding the Eastern Sea Kingdom. Sui bared her sharp fox fangs, hissing through clenched teeth. You'll live to regret this. Too late for regrets now. Regretted choosing him as my spirit beast. After the coming-of-age ceremony, sacred beasts must live with their masters by tradition, sharing quarters in life and resting together in death. At 18, when territorial instincts run strong, I recalled how Sui refused to live with me in our past life. Defying all objections, I built him a separate palace. This time, bound to my sister as his master, he still resisted sharing her chambers, until she chained him up and starved him for 3 days straight. Reading Guyu's conflicted expression, I finally offered, we needn't share a bed if it makes you uncomfortable. His eyes widened in shock for a brief moment before he stammered out, Master, do you dislike me? Sui is from the Fox clan, while I'm just a lowly mermaid, I said calmly yet firmly. Loyalty is the most important quality in a spirit beast. Since I've chosen you as my spirit beast, I won't look down on you. Besides, all races are equal, there's no hierarchy of nobility or baseness. At those words, he clenched the hem of his clothes, his vision blurred with unshed tears, lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. Then he swiftly changed clothes, dove under the covers like a startled rabbit, and wrapped himself up, his exaggeratedly solemn expression sending me into fits of laughter. An 18-year-old boy at that awkward age of bashfulness and fiery spirit, he turned away, clutching the blanket over his waist, his neck flushed crimson with embarrassment. Over the next 3 years, Guyu grew increasingly disciplined, requiring little supervision. Before dawn, he'd practice swordplay in the courtyard, late into the night. He'd still be poring over the Confucian classics. One night, I woke from a nightmare at 5 in the morning to find the bed empty. Peering through the window, I saw Guyu's graceful swordplay casting elegant shadows on the paper screen. Throwing on my cloak, I stepped outside. Guyu froze mid-movement when he noticed me, his practice abruptly halting. Late to bed yet early to rise. Proper rest matters too. Don't push yourself too hard. Master, his voice trailed off as he bowed his head. Our merfolk have never been gifted, we've had to rely on sheer diligence. Hard work is admirable, but don't push yourself too hard. Take your time, I know Xiaoyu will grow into my most capable right hand. I reached out to ruffle his hair as usual, only to realize Guyu had shot up again. Now I barely reached his shoulder. Sensing my intention, he gradually shifted into his mare form. His luminous tail coiled gracefully on the ground, iridescent scales shimmering across his face in breathtaking patterns. Then he bowed his head and gently took my hand. This wasn't the first time Guyu had acted coy. After succeeding, he resumed human form. Master, dawn hasn't broken yet, you should go back to sleep. A glint of triumphant delight flickered in the corner of his eyes. Diligence is commendable, but we've time aplenty, no need for haste. Guyu seldom disobeyed me, yet here he was. With a faint smile, he picked up his sword again. In the days that followed, apart from eating, sleeping, and tending to me, Guyu spent every moment either practicing swordplay or immersed in books. The harder he tried, the louder the court's whispers grew. What's the use of merfolk striving so hard? They'll never surpass the Fox clan. By tradition, the crown princess should have chosen first. Who knows what came over her, passing up the cleverest fox spirit. Merfolk are the lowliest race. No amount of effort will make them the Empress's right hand. To my surprise, my sister even brought Sui along and deliberately performed drunken slowness before Guyu and me, the most challenging sword dance one few spirit beasts in this world could master. That was the result of my past life's efforts, hiring the finest tutors and training relentlessly with Sui day after day. As the dance ended, the crowd was once again awestruck by Suyi's talent. But what followed left everyone utterly dumbfounded. Sheathing her sword, Sui approached me through thunderous applause, whispering, "Alara, master, I've mastered it. Please don't abandon me," I scoffed, giving him a sidelong glance. "I only have one spirit beast. His name is Guyu, a clever merman." In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed, and it was time for my sister and me to participate in court affairs. In my past life, nearly all the court ministers had overwhelmingly sided with me. I assumed everything would proceed as smoothly as it had in my previous life. I can't fathom what methods my sister and Sui employed in this lifetime, but half the female officials at court now support her, even seeking to overturn Donghai Kingdom's tradition of the eldest princess inheriting the throne. Growing increasingly concerned, I realized I must ascend the throne smoothly for the sake of Donghai's people. What shocked me most was Sui stopping me directly after court adjourned that day. "My liege, I admit my wrongdoing," he said, backing me into a corner. "And you think you're blameless?" His eyes burned crimson. "Master, do you really believe Guyu is that obedient, that spotless?" A sly smile played on his lips. "What are you implying?" I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "For, master, I'm the only one who won't betray you. That fish of yours, it's been disloyal for ages. To be honest, I don't believe it. Guyu has always been obedient, and loved me dearly." The youthful flutters of his heart, the day-to-day companionship we shared, I could feel it all, but lately, he's been constantly absent, even skipping court sessions frequently. It's truly out of character. The suspicion gnawed at me. I still reached out and slapped Sui. The sharp crack of the blow was startling, leaving him dazed. Indeed, in my past life, I spoiled him daily, gave him all the respect, yet forgot he was merely a spirit beast, my pet, my servant. "A filthy mind sees filth everywhere. Keep talking to me like that, and I'll sell you off to be a beast whore," I snarled at him before storming off, leaving Sui standing there dumbfounded. "Xiaoyu, where have you been?" Returning from court, I happened to run into Guyu rushing back in a hurry. Nowhere special." He flashed me the same familiar smile as always, but I knew he was lying. Whenever he lied, the scales on his face would inevitably glow with a faint purple light. I frowned but didn't press further, recalling Sui's earlier words, "If you don't believe me, just follow him and see for yourself." Back then, I merely made the same mistake all spirit beasts are prone to make. "Don't stray from the path," I said coldly to Guyu. His eyes dimmed momentarily, as if veiled in mist, perhaps haunted by shadows from my past life. Fear got the better of me, so the next morning, I followed Guyu when he left. I saw him first go to Embroidered Robe Lane. Meeting with ministers who had once impeached me in court, there he was, exchanging ingratiating smiles and toasting with them. What shocked me more was his departure to a pleasure house afterward, fawning over female officials with drinks. The scales on his face flickered, features I once adored but now find repulsive. Could it be that I was truly at fault? Why, whether Sui or Guyu, they all betray me in the end. Am I really unfit to keep spirit beasts? The court ladies who opposed me grew increasingly brazen, even appearing outside my bedchamber to whisper with Guyu. He remained oblivious even as I approached from behind. In a daze, I heard the lady-in-waiting murmur, "The crown princess is beautiful indeed, but is she truly worth such devotion from you?" Guyu nodded solemnly, mumbling something unintelligible as his blush spread down to his neck. Only years later did I learn his words. "My liege is kind-hearted. I love her, and these burdens I bear willingly." Little did I know then, I fought back tears and rage until Guyu saw the court lady off. Closing my eyes, I heaved a weary sigh. "Xiaoyu, are you keeping something from me?" This was his last chance. If he'd just admit his mistake, I could forgive him, but he shook his head without hesitation. "Master, nothing at all. Are you feeling unwell, master?" In the darkness, the eerie glow of scales on his face sent chills down my spine, even in this second life. Why must I still face the cruel fate of betrayal? I used to blame Sui entirely, his ungratefulness, his worthlessness, convinced none of it was my fault. Yet here we are again, history repeating itself. A single tear escaped without my noticing. Guyu panicked, fumbling clumsily as he tried to wipe away my tear. I pushed him away and walked out of the courtyard, leaving him standing there. I couldn't understand why Guyu, who'd been so loyal and brave in our past life, would betray me now. Perhaps I'm truly unfit to be the Empress of Donghai Kingdom. Maybe even Guyu believes my sister would make a better sovereign. As I wandered the streets, the weather turned appropriately gloomy before unleashing a torrential downpour. Tears mingled with rain on my face. Never had I felt so utterly wretched as I did this day. Suddenly, an umbrella reached over from behind, sheltering me from the rain. "Happy birthday, my lady." It was Guyu, cradling a paper package in his left hand before handing it to me. Today was my birthday. Truth be told, girls from Donghai Kingdom never cared much for birthdays. Perhaps Guyu was the only one who remembered, yet remembering his betrayal, I still couldn't forgive him. I pushed his umbrella away, only to be forcibly pulled into his embrace. The merman youth is now 24. The once tender boy has grown rugged. his muscles more defined, exuding raw masculine energy. He unwrapped the paper package to reveal a thick stack of letters. Minister of Personnel Li Xiama pledges undying loyalty to the Crown Princess, vowing to serve until his last breath. Chancellor Fujisi swears fealty to the Crown Princess, promising to devote his life to her service. A thick stack of contracts now lay in my hands, the very same voices that had opposed me in court mere days ago, transformed into binding agreements. Were you handling this matter these past few days? I looked up at him. He nodded eagerly. Yes, my lord. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you. Remembering my earlier suspicions about Guyu, I trailed off guiltily, because, master, the current imperial couple is deeply suspicious. In 2 years' time, I fear great chaos will erupt. With formidable enemies at our gates, we cannot afford internal strife. Should we fail, you can claim ignorance. I'll sever our spirit beast contract myself, allowing you to withdraw unscathed. The coming war in 2 years, a chill ran down my spine. Xiao you've also been reborn. The voice had lost its former youthful timbre, now slightly hoarse from days of exhausting travel, an unexpectedly captivating sound. He shielded me in his arms the entire way, though we walked through the pouring rain for so long. I remained completely dry while half his shoulder was soaked. The rainwater bled through his clothes, clinging damply to his skin and tracing the contours of his body. I rose on my toes and kissed him. In truth, the spirit beast of Donghai women is the life partner they personally choose. Though Guyu and I had formed our contract, we'd never actually consummated our union. This time felt different somehow, whether from impulse or irresistible longing. I couldn't tell. He held me tightly, panting with flushed cheeks, too bashful to meet my gaze. After their night of passion, Guyu slept in unusually late until the sun was high. In my past life, during the year of Bingshu, the Queen Mother suddenly succumbed to her chronic illness, plunging the kingdom into chaos and leaving Donghai's people destitute. Strangely enough, though Donghai's people enjoy long lifespans, the Queen Mother met her untimely demise at such a young age. This year marks the Bingshu year. I summoned numerous imperial physicians to the palace, yet they all claimed the Empress Dowager was in perfect health, showing no signs of illness. Crown Princess, there's something peculiar about this, whispered the folk healer I'd secretly summoned, frowning as she took the pulse before hesitating mid-sentence. Does Her Majesty often consume Tibetan rhododendron, that precious tonic? When combined with musk, becomes a potent poison. My heart sank. The divine physician closed his eyes and shook his head, murmuring, "All I can promise is that Her Majesty's passing won't be too painful." His words pierced my heart like a dagger. My world came crashing down. Given a second chance at life, I truly believed I could save the Queen Mother and prevent that tragedy, yet why must I watch helplessly as she visibly withers before my eyes, aging, suffering, slipping toward death, clutching my mother tightly. My tears soaked her robes as she held me just like old times, gently patting my back. "Alara," she whispered, "Zephyr is ruthless. Never entrust the Eastern Sea Kingdom to her, or our land will suffer unspeakable torment." I nodded solemnly, not just out of filial duty, but for the sake of our kingdom's people. Yet one mystery remained: who would poison Mother's meals with wolfsbane and burn musk incense in her chambers? Only the imperial family could access the royal bedchambers. That left just 2 suspects, my sister and me. 5. Grief twisted into rage as I stormed into my sister's room, gripping her throat. "Why?" A flicker of panic flashed through her eyes. "Why couldn't you even spare our mother?" "Sister, what are you talking about? I don't understand." She feigned innocence, but beneath those pitiful eyes lurked the glint of triumph. Tibetan aconite and musk, only the 2 of us could have done this. As I spoke, my grip tightened around her throat. Had Sui not burst in to intervene, I might have strangled her then and there. Coughing violently while clutching her neck, she glared at me with venom. "Do you have proof, sister? For all I know, you're the one who murdered our mother." Rage sent stabbing pains through my chest until my body gave out, my vision swimming with dizziness. As I fell backward, bracing for the impact of cold hard ground, something soft caught me through the haze. It's Guyu's fishtail. With one hand supporting my waist, his magnificent yet supple tail coiled around my legs. "The evidence is right here." Following the sound, I saw him holding a thick stack of papers. The records show my sister procured wolfsbane and musk from the apothecary, corroborated by the imperial chef's testimony. The second princess had been lacing the emperor and empress's meals with excessive wolfsbane under the guise of tonic herbs. Drawing myself upright, I commanded the palace guards. "The second princess has poisoned their majesties. Take her to the dungeons." To my astonishment, Zephyr remained utterly composed in her cell, lounging on the bed with crossed legs while humming a discordant tune. A cold dread gripped me. Last lifetime, the realm descended into chaos after Mother's death. Would history repeat itself now? Guyu seemed to sense my unease, gently patting me with his fishtail. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll handle everything." You should spend this time with Her Majesty, thank goodness for Xiaoyu. But after all these years together, Guyu has long shed the obedient demeanor of a spirit beast. Now he's more like a husband, offering me solace in my darkest hours. The Queen Mother once said that deep bonds with spirit beasts could blossom into marriage. Well, I wonder if Xiaoyu is actually willing. The Queen Mother has passed after all, thankfully. The miracle physician kept his promise. She departed peacefully, without any suffering, a faint smile still gracing her face. Xiaoyu had long left the capital. While the nation mourned the Queen Mother's death, rebellion broke out in one county. Fortunately, with Xiaoyu's help, unlike the previous life, this unrest was swiftly quelled. What I fear most is the Imperial Guard. Over the years, through Xiaoyu's and my relentless efforts, nearly all court officials have joined my faction, except the Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard's commander is Sui, my sister's spirit beast, the very one who killed me in my past life. I don't know what transpired after my death in that previous life to cause such a drastic change in Sui. Sui actually barged into my palace when the moon hung on the treetops. Master, he murmured with vulpine eyes brimming with mischief. I've missed you terribly, Alara. He pinned me against the wall, his bloodshot eyes glinting, reeking of strong liquor. Marry me, and I'll place the Imperial Guards under your command. With that, he produced the commander's token and dangled it before me. He suddenly leaned down and forced a kiss on me. A wave of nausea hit me as I turned my face away in disgust. Fear crept in. He dismissed all the guards, leaving the palace eerily empty, with Xiaoyu away from the capital. Genuine terror gripped me this time. I watched in horror as his hands moved to tear at my clothes. With a sharp whoosh, he was yanked backward and slammed onto the floor. I turned toward the sound and saw Xiaoyu, snatching the token from Sui's hand in fury. He shoved him into a pre-prepared cage. As Sui knelt trembling and begging for mercy, Xiaoyu merely looked at him with contempt before pinning me down on the bed. His eyes were rimmed red, his entire body burning with fever. Master, didn't you promise I'd be your only spirit beast in this lifetime? He kissed me desperately, all technique abandoned. Xiaoyu, before the words could escape his lips, they were silenced with a kiss. Master, what does he have that I don't? Xiaoyu panted heavily, each word a labored whisper drawn out between ragged breaths. His pupils grew unfocused as the iridescent scales on his face shimmered, beads of sweat tracing the sharp line of his jaw before dripping onto me. Xiaoyu, be gentler. A night of passion. When Sui woke at dawn, she curled up in the cage like she'd swallowed something vile. I surveyed the disheveled bed before rushing to retrieve the Imperial Guard's token. Master, you're awake. The token is right here. There he goes again with that innocent act, as if nothing happened last night. When I ignored him, he clung to me and whined, I'm sorry, Master, I won't do it again. There won't be a next time. The late Empress's decree named me as successor. With unanimous support from all court officials, the Imperial Guards were successfully pacified by Xiaoyu. In the blink of an eye, my coronation arrived. In my past life, I'd met my end beneath Si's razor-sharp fangs. Given a second chance, on my coronation day, the Eastern Sea Kingdom's laws demanded execution for disloyal spirit beasts. Though my sister committed grave crimes, her royal status spared her life, banished instead to the barren wastes. Let's hope she'll turn over a new leaf this time. I enacted a new legal code prioritizing the people's welfare, filling the Eastern Sea Kingdom with jubilation. Guyu naturally became my queen, and the mermaid race finally shed their former status as the lowliest and weakest species. 20 years later, Jingjing, do you know what matters most when choosing a spirit beast? Mother Queen, I do. When selecting a spirit beast, loyalty and benevolence are paramount. Story 2. My dad got promoted in a raise, and he asked me to pay for the whole family to go to the seaside for a trip. I asked, why? They said, what have you studied? You don't know how to be filial to your parents at all. My younger brother persuaded me that we were all family and shouldn't be so fussy. As a result, I was overworked, and when I arrived at the hotel, I had a high fever and couldn't stop. I begged my so-called family to buy medicine for me, but they threw me aside in disgust. My parents locked me in the room and left me to fend for myself. If there is a next time, I will give my family a big gift. 1. I was in the driver's seat, unable to believe what I saw. The scene was exactly the same as in my last life. My heart was pounding, and I was back to the day when the whole family set off for the hotel. Obviously, my soul was still being burned by the heat in the air. But now I was back before the high temperature broke out. I was thinking about what to do. And the cars behind kept honking their horns. Harper, what are you doing? Drive quickly. That damn horn is so loud that I can't even hear my game. In the back seat, my younger brother Dylan kicked my seat impatiently. After thinking it through, I came back to my senses and drove in another direction. If I said I wouldn't go now, it would arouse suspicion. I'd better escape after we got to the hotel. I stopped in front of the Tsainyo station for a while and then drove to the resort hotel. You girls only know how to buy things online every day. It's a waste of money. You might as well buy something to eat for your younger brother. When my dad saw my express delivery, he turned into an education expert and gave his pointers. It was already noon when we arrived at the hotel. After parking the car, I only took the express delivery I just got and left all my luggage behind. As soon as we entered the room, everyone was full of complaints. "Harper, what kind of hotel did you choose? There isn't even a computer. It's not as good as the esports hotel I liked." When my parents saw that their precious son was not satisfied, they echoed, "Your sister has worked hard and paid for it." "But Harper, you should have listened to your brother. This hotel isn't very good either." I used to think that my mom was the only one who was good to me in this family, but in my last life, she was the first one to suggest leaving me in the hotel. I didn't plan to indulge them. I said everything I didn't dare to say in my last life. If you don't like it, let him pay. If you can't pay, stop complaining. "Harper, what do you mean? I used to be as timid as a quail and always endured Dylan's behavior." Now Dylan stood up angrily. "Stop, Harper, your brother is still young. He just said it casually. Girls shouldn't be so hot-tempered." Elijah slapped the table and shouted, "Yes, Harper, your brother just said it casually. Apologize to your brother quickly. You'll rely on him when you get married." I thought to myself, just for one day, it's the last day, just bear it. It's my fault. I have a bad temper. Okay, you and your mom go and pack your luggage." After saying that, Elijah lay on the bed and acted like a master. I made an excuse to make an appointment for the diving project for them and left. Only a fool would listen to him, too. In my last life, for the sake of their health, I didn't agree to let them go diving. Just because Dylan got an underwater camera, he insisted on going into the water. When I heard this news, Dylan went and twisted the truth, and I was scolded by my parents. "Alas, we've raised you so hard, and you're not willing to spend money on your family. It's really a waste of raising you." Under the strong request and moral kidnapping of my parents, I had to make an appointment for the whole family that night and go the next day, but when we went, I had a high fever. My so-called family ignored me. As soon as the high temperature broke out, they abandoned me. In this life, you must have a good time. The longer you play, the better. At 2 p.m. on the same day, I couldn't wait to take them to the diving project. When we went out, the temperature had already exceeded 40 degrees, which made them want to go into the water and play even more. "I can't go into the water, you go and have fun." When Dylan heard what I said, he asked suspiciously, "Why can't you go into the water?" I gave the answer I had prepared. "I'm on my period and I have dysmenorrhea. I'm not suitable to go into the water. Can't you hold it until we get home? You're really unlucky." What a buzzkill. I'll hold your phones on the boat. I'm afraid the phones will get waterlogged." When I heard such a brainless remark, I almost couldn't hold back my anger. When my mom heard what I said, she instinctively retorted, "What do you mean by getting waterlogged? You're looking forward to it. You're so clumsy that I'm afraid you'll lose the phones." Didn't my younger brother buy an underwater camera? The camera he bought at a high price must take better pictures than the phones. When Dylan heard someone mention his new treasure, he rarely sided with me. "Mom, the pictures taken with my camera must be better than those taken with the phones. It's useless to bring your old phones. Let Harper hold them." Seeing that my mom was still hesitant, I took a step back to move forward. "Forget it. If you want to take the phones, take them anyway. If the phone bags leak and the phones are damaged, I won't pay for the repairs." When the three of them heard what I said, they quickly handed me their phones. I watched as the three of them went into the water one by one, and I turned around and pretended to be weak. "My stomach hurts and I want to go back to the hotel. If my family asks, just say that I'm not feeling well and I've gone back to the hotel. I'll come back later." The staff member was also a girl. She heard Dylan's outrageous words just now. If it weren't for her professional ethics, she would have scolded him back. When she heard that I wanted to go back, she readily sent me back safely and reminded me to pay attention to my safety before I got off the boat. As soon as I got ashore, I ran back to the hotel without stopping. With the high temperature and the strenuous exercise, I was already sweating profusely, but I didn't have time to rest. As soon as I entered the room, I opened the express delivery. It was the surveillance camera I bought before. I originally planned to install it at the door of my rental house. After reading the instructions, I quickly scanned the environment in the room and finally locked onto the inconspicuous potted plant behind the door. I quickly installed it and connected it to my phone. I looked at the time. There were still 19 hours before the high temperature broke out. The time wasn't sufficient. I rummaged through the ID cards of the three of them. After washing my face, I was ready to buy supplies. "You dead girl, why did you come back secretly?" "I couldn't find my phone because of you." 3. Mom, why are you back? I quickly thought of a countermeasure. I just didn't know how long my mom had been here and what she had heard. "Mind your own business. Why did you leave without saying a word?" My stomach hurts. I came back to use the toilet. I just finished. I shook my just washed hands. You're always full of excuses. I saw my mom walking towards the bathroom and she came out after a while. Mom, I'll send you back. No, I don't want to. There's nothing interesting in the water. There aren't even as many fish as I saw in the vegetable market. It was the same as before. It was like this when I took them on a trip. Anyway, I haven't paid for the diving yet. If you don't go, I won't pay. Let your dad and the others pay. You dead girl. We've raised you so big, and you're not willing to spend a little money on the family. She cursed and went out. I saw the staff from a distance and walked up quickly. Talking nonsense in a low voice, the two of us reached a consensus. What did you say to that person just now? I said I wanted to pay more money to let you have a good time. I watched as my mom went into the water, and then I went back to the shore and waved goodbye to the kind person. I quickly ran back to the car. While waiting for the red light, I took out the ID cards of the three of them and took out loans online. Then text messages popped up one by one. I caught a glimpse of Dylan's phone. In my last life, I used all my strength to hold on to Dylan and begged him to buy me antipyretics, but he shook off my hand. Don't touch me. If you're sick, stay away from me. Don't pass on your bad luck to me. Then he lowered his head and played with the new phone I bought for him. My parents also told me to be sensible and said that I wasn't being delicate and that I would be fine after sleeping. Then they locked me in the hotel, and I fainted. A message popped up on my phone. I laughed when I took a look. The three of them were panting like dogs on the boat. I immediately transferred 2,000 yuan to the staff, and she sent me an okay emoji. Now I'll go to my parents' house and take away all the valuable things, for I didn't know until I looked for them. They always said they didn't have money and cried poverty to me. It turned out that all the money was spent on the action figures and gold and silver jewelry that Dylan bought, but they never wore them when they saw me, just as I was about to leave. Just in case, I turned back and did something. In the end, I only took the gold and silver jewelry and 2,000 yuan in cash and drove to the large supermarket closest to my rental house. I bought a lot of things in the supermarket. I always thought about saving money to spend on the family before. I even chose a cheap rental house in the suburbs. This time, I could spend the money however I wanted. In the end, I only had a little cash left in my hand. The supermarket offered free delivery. But people's hearts are unpredictable. It's more reassuring to transport the things myself. When I returned to my small rental house, I was carrying 4 heavy bags. As soon as I opened the door, I saw 2 big watery eyes in the corner. Mio, Jojo, Mom is back. In my last life, my soul came back to look for Jojo. Unfortunately, Jojo's condition wasn't optimistic either. It seemed to be able to see me. It meowed in my direction and then stopped moving. I climbed up and down several times to finish moving the things. My phone vibrated, and I went to the 2nd floor. The landlady's grandmother was picked up by her daughter to live in another place in the first half of the year. Since I was an old tenant and had a good relationship with the landlady's grandmother, her daughter entrusted me to find a tenant. I made an excuse that a friend of mine wanted to rent the top floor. I found the key hidden under the carpet and opened the mailbox downstairs. Finally, I got a small bunch of keys. As long as I locked the stairwells on the 2nd floor, no one could go to the 5th and 6th floors except me. I went to several other places and finally spent all the money from the loan and the money in my card. In the early morning, I still didn't dare to stop. The area of the 6th floor was much larger than the place I'm living in now. I cleaned the upstairs and moved all the supplies up and organized them. Time passed quickly. There were still 4 hours before the high temperature broke out. I couldn't hold up against the physical exhaustion and rested for an hour. At 5 a.m., I was busy again. Finally, it was all done. Lying on the bed, I thought back. I locked the stairwells on the 5th and 6th floors with several chains and installed the last surveillance camera on the 1st floor. I lay on the ground relieved and enjoyed the air conditioning. The shrill ringtone of my phone rang, waking me up from my light sleep. Just one look made me lose all my sleepiness. It was Dylan. I had already taken their phones. Where did he get a phone? 5. While I was thinking, because no one answered the phone for a long time, the call was automatically hung up. I got up and checked the surveillance camera installed in the hotel, not understanding which part had gone wrong. I saw the 3 of them kicking open the door angrily and cursing me nonstop. The curses were really dirty. They even cursed themselves. I guessed that the staff had worked hard secretly during this time. The nonsense I said before was that I was abducted by this family when I was a child. Now I was going to do a paternity test, but they couldn't find out. I gave her 2,000 yuan and asked her to hold them back for as long as possible, unexpectedly. She was so efficient that she held them back until the next morning. My parents were still talking, and Dylan was rummaging through his suitcase. Sure enough, he found an old phone soon. I was too hasty. I didn't see this phone when I was looking for the ID cards before, but even if he had a phone, so what? When the high temperature broke out, they couldn't escape from the hotel unless the Jade Emperor came. At this moment, The phone rang again. I waited for a while before answering it. Harper. Where the hell are you? You took so long to answer the phone. We left our phones with you, and we couldn't find you anywhere. What kind of lousy diving did you find? It almost killed us. There wasn't enough oxygen underwater. I almost died. You'd better complain about them quickly. Why aren't you talking? Are you mute? I pretended to be weak and said, I had dysmenorrhea yesterday and fainted from the pain. I'm still in the hospital. I'll ask a runner to send you your phones later. Don't leave the hotel, just wait at the hotel entrance, or he won't be able to find you. You have so many things to deal with. Hurry up. I looked at the time. There were still half an hour left, and the temperature would suddenly rise. Soon, the water and electricity would be cut off, and the food would go bad. Let them keep waiting. Just wait at the entrance. It'll be there in half an hour. I hung up the call. Just wait. I won't come even if you die. Not long after I fell back asleep. I received another call. Why hasn't it come yet? I'm sweating all over from waiting. Where's the phone? What the hell are you doing? I'm warning you. Come right now. Get out of the hospital. I looked at the time. The high temperature had already broken out. I advise you to save your saliva. Otherwise, you'll have nothing to drink but urine. What about you? Are you crazy? You think you're some kind of boss? You have no money and no shame. You're holding it in. Why don't you stick that thing with 502? My dad turned into a big education expert again. How do you talk to your brother? You're a girl. What you say is shameless. There are elders beside you. Can't you be sensible, old bastard? I don't want to talk about you. You're in your 50s, and you don't have a house or a car. You keep sucking the blood from your daughter. When you got promoted, you asked your daughter to pay to show off. Your son is even better at pretending than you. Sensible. I didn't see you being sensible. You didn't even support your grandparents when they begged at the door. They said it's better to raise a dog than to raise you, a white-eyed wolf. At least a dog will wag its tail at people. You're the one who's really shameless. I watched the two people on the surveillance camera. They were so angry with my series of words that their faces turned red. Finally, it was my mom's turn to speak. In my last life, my mother kept PUAing me. It made me lack confidence since I was a child and made me willing to give everything to them. I didn't see the ugly faces of their family until I died. Harper, your father and your brother only said a few words to you because the weather is too hot. Your father and I have worked hard to raise you and love you so much. You should learn to be grateful. Enough, Mom. I know how you treated me all these years. You didn't give me even a single cent for my studies. If you had stayed in the hotel properly, you might have a slim chance of survival. I had already repaid the kindness of them giving birth to me in my last life. No, I don't care whether they live or die. They kept chattering. When the high temperature broke out, the ground temperature reached 3 digits. Only at night did it get a little lower, but still, no one dared to go out. And I just turned on the air conditioner at 16 degrees every day and watched the 3 of them on the surveillance. At first, the 3 of them were fine in the hotel, until a week later, I heard their conversation. Mom, the hotel said they won't provide food starting from tomorrow. What should we do? Fortunately, the potted plant where I hid the surveillance was fake. Otherwise, when they were extremely hungry, even the potted plant wouldn't be spared. I took the initiative to send 2 photos. One photo was of half a seedless watermelon. The rind was thin and the flesh was red. And there was a spoon inserted in it. In comparison, the watermelon looked even bigger and more delicious. The other photo was of the refrigerator full of food. There were so many kinds of meat that it almost overflowed. Dylan, I'm in your esports room now. I'm playing on the computer, turning on the air conditioner, and eating the watermelon. It's so cozy. It's a pity that all these were originally yours. If Dad hadn't insisted on going on vacation, you could enjoy it too. I bought a lot of food and piled it at home. Only a fool would let them know my real address. They were so blind that they definitely couldn't tell that the photos were fake. These 2 photos were the result of my hard work for several days. There was a crack on Dylan's face in the surveillance. After seeing the photos and the message, he didn't hesitate to lash out at the phone. A series of 60-second voice messages popped up on my phone. Although I didn't click to listen, all those words still reached my ears through the surveillance. The anger of being powerless was really ridiculous. When Jojo saw me laughing, it trotted over. This fluffy little guy was on the verge of death when I picked it up. In the blink of an eye, it has grown so big. Some people are really worse than animals. The temperature kept rising, and Dylan and the others' cash and food were constantly decreasing. There were also bloodstains on their bodies from time to time after the power outage. The whole hotel became more and more chaotic. Strangers kept coming in and rummaging around in the surveillance. They almost found the surveillance. Under the effect of the night vision camera, a green human face suddenly appeared, which was scarier than a horror movie. At night, when the temperature was lower, there were even more people coming and going. One night, 3 months later, I was woken up by the cold air of the air conditioner. I vaguely wanted to grab the quilt beside me. Bang. It was the sound from the surveillance. I told you to hand over all the food. Are you deaf? 7. The voice sounded like that of a fierce, strong man. When I got up to check the surveillance, I saw the three of them walking out of the room one by one. On the faces of the three of them, who hadn't had a full meal for a long time, there was no fear at all. Instead, there was a hint of excitement. I felt something was wrong and quickly scrolled through the surveillance. In the surveillance, my dad quickly got up and locked the door, but the people outside didn't plan to let them go. Soon, the sound of the door being battered came one after another. The other doors in the hotel were battered open one by one. Soon, it was the room of the three of them. The door was battered repeatedly, and the surveillance screen vibrated constantly because of the battering outside the door. I told you to hand over all the food. Are you deaf? It was useless for the three of them to lean against the door. With a bang, the door was battered open. So there are people here. How dare you not open the door? Do you want to die? Dylan dared to scold the people who came without even seeing the situation clearly. Do you believe I'll call the police? The strong man who entered first stared at Dylan with an unclear look in his eyes. For a moment, Dylan felt a little scared. What are you in a daze for? The man who came in later nudged the strong man. Hand over all the food, otherwise, don't blame my axe for being ruthless. The man held the axe and warned, looking down at the three of them. My mom's face turned pale, and her lips trembled as she replied, We don't have any food to give you. Just as the man was about to speak, the strong man beside him walked forward and looked at Dylan excitedly. If there's no food, he can be a substitute. The strong man grabbed Dylan. Even Dylan, as stupid as he was, realized what was about to happen to him. No, I don't want it. We have food. Yes, we have a lot of food. Dylan used all his strength and actually broke free from the strong man. Dylan held the phone and quickly flipped through it. I found it. Here. There's food here. There's a lot of food. Dylan turned the phone screen to show the strong man. After the man saw it, he kicked Dylan down. What's the use of showing me the photos? Do you want me to eat the photos? The strong man helped Dylan up with distress. Be gentle. Don't hurt him. Dylan was helped up by the strong man, and his hand was held by the strong man. He wanted to hide but couldn't. I can take you to find it. All these things are at my home. I'll give them all to you. By the way, there's also my sister at home. I can give her to you too. I just beg you to spare me. If you spare me, all those things, including people, will be yours. The strong man and the man looked at each other and then readily agreed. It was a happy ending for them. The five of them took advantage of the slightly lower temperature at night and quickly left. It seemed that they were going to come back to find me. Then, as a member of the family, I'll send them a little gift to show my sincere feelings. 8. I skillfully controlled the drone and sent the gift over. It should arrive before they get home. 2 hours later, the drone successfully delivered the gift. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw another monitor. In a hurry, I controlled the drone in the room to turn around and hide under the dark bed. They had entered the house. Just in case, I installed a surveillance camera. It was installed inside the robot vacuum cleaner. Only that position met the requirement of being hidden. And I could also control the robot vacuum cleaner to move through my phone. In the other monitor, it showed that my dad entered first. After confirming it was safe, he respectfully invited the strong man and the man in. The sun hadn't come out yet, but all five of them had sunburns of different degrees on their faces. When everyone walked into the living room, Dylan was scared silly. The dream of a room full of supplies shattered into pieces, just like the windows in the hall. When they rented this house, my parents told me that there was no money at home, and since they raised me, I should pay for it. The windows facing the sun couldn't bear the long-term direct sunlight and burst open. It must be in the room. It must be. Dylan was in a hurry and walked towards his esports room. The moment he opened the door, he was stunned. It's a pity that the surveillance couldn't capture Dylan's expression. I believe it must be very wonderful. The strong man put his hand on Dylan's shoulder. Is this what you said? A lot. Maybe it's not this room. Dylan got rid of the strong man and quickly searched the remaining rooms. He didn't even spare the small room that had become a storage room. He stood by the bed, and through the drone under the bed, I heard the rustling sound of paper rubbing. It should be that Dylan saw the gift I sent. Did you find it? The strong man's question came from the living room. Dylan quickly threw the gift I sent deep under the bed. No, not yet. 9. Harper, by the way, the refrigerator. There's food in the refrigerator. Dylan opened the refrigerator eagerly. The refrigerator, which was full before they left home, now only had some zombie-like meat and vegetables that had turned yellow and rotten. I found it. There's food here. Dylan shouted excitedly. Everyone followed the sound. At least there's food. What do you think? The man looked at the strong man. No way. The strong man disagreed and reached out his claws to Dylan again. Dylan had the strong man's hand on his waist and wanted to ask his parents for help. My parents were angry that the other party didn't keep their word, but they didn't know what Dylan was really afraid of. I'll give you two choices. 1. Give us supplies exactly the same as those in the photo. 2. If you don't have that much, you can be a substitute. Then, the strong man moved his hand down and pinched. Dylan shuddered. Is there no other choice? The strong man didn't speak, but he pinched again. The man was used to the strong man's behavior. Don't disturb my sleep. After saying that, he turned around and made demands on my parents. Dylan was pulled into the nearest room by the strong man, and it happened to be the room where my drone was. After listening to the voices of the strong man and Dylan for 5 minutes, I reluctantly cut off the connection with the drone. I couldn't help but sigh. They really know how to have fun. In these 3 months, I kept improving myself by studying and exercising in my safe house. Since it's located in a remote suburban area, there are almost no people around. Only a few people pass by occasionally. One day a week later, the strong man and Dylan had another communication in that small room, but soon, the strong man called the others over. The surveillance was far away, but I could still hear the man's questioning. I've wasted so much effort. Are you playing me? Do you really think I'm joking? If you can't find the food, you'll use your flesh to make up for it. Then a paper ball was thrown out and hit my robot vacuum cleaner. Judging by the situation, the strong man and the man saw the gift I gave to my family. The content was, Dear Mom and Dad, I've followed your instructions and transferred all the supplies to a place that only our family knows. I'm safe and will wait there for our family to reunite. The time of the signature was the day they left the hotel. This house is in a high-end residential area and has its own power generation system, so the power hasn't been cut off. Therefore, I can use my robot vacuum cleaner openly. I looked at the time, and it was time. I controlled it and drove it to the small room openly. 10. In the room, the deathly silence was broken by the robot vacuum cleaner. I controlled it skillfully, just like yesterday. I drove it under the bed, nimbly avoided the drone, and then deliberately pushed the note out. The man glanced at the people present. It's exactly as the note said. You definitely have food. If you keep hiding it, you'll use your flesh to make up for it. Then he smiled playfully. I wonder if it will taste as delicious as that person last time. Less than half a year after the high temperature broke out, some people were already, I don't care about the fate of the 3 of them, I only care about myself and Jojo. Unexpectedly, after not watching for a week, only 3 people were still alive. The strong man was dead. The man was also dead. At first, I saw my parents and Dylan talking in a low voice. Mom and Dad, I heard that person talking in his sleep yesterday. They'll ask us to go out and find food, if we can't find any. When the food in the refrigerator is gone, they'll eat us. The 2 of them gasped, and then there was only the rustling sound. Soon, Dylan took the initiative to invite the strong man. The strong man was excited to see Dylan's appearance and hugged Dylan and walked towards the small room. The strong man and Dylan went into that small room again. Less than half an hour later, Dylan called the man over. The man went in and less than 10 seconds later, he crawled out desperately, You can't escape. Go to hell. Dylan ran out holding a kitchen knife and slashed with all his strength, one slash after another. The bones at the connection between the man's head and body were exposed, but the man's body was left intact. Finally, my dad and Dylan struggled to carry the strong man and the man out one by one. There was a blood hole on the back of the strong man's head, as big as his head. My mom leaned against the wall and walked out of the small room with a bruised face. Soon, the sound of vomiting came from the toilet. I can't know what happened in the small room, but I can guess roughly. However, it's really surprising that these 3 skinny people were able to kill 2 big and strong men. It was really a waste of my efforts to lead them to the hotel to find Dylan and the others. Among the few people who passed by before, there were the strong man and the man. They passed by at the same time as a couple. In the hazy moonlight, the strong man and the man had evil intentions. They insulted and killed the couple. Now, this is what they deserve. This family really has the nerve. After all, there were many people with ill intentions who came to the door. These 2 were protecting them, and the communication between the strong man and Dylan seemed sincere. But even if the strong man and the man are dead, there's still not much food left. My dad and Dylan went out for a while and were already sweating all over. Not to mention the temperature outside, it was almost like an oven. A month later, except for my small room, which no one searched, they were so hungry that they even tore apart and ate the leather sofa. The 3 of them were barely alive, leaning against the wall. Dylan seemed to think of something and secretly said something to my dad. 11. My dad thought for a while and then nodded and went out with Dylan. As for my mom, she was so hungry that she fainted. The two of them came back with pale faces. Dylan wanted to vomit but had nothing in his stomach to vomit. Dad, those two corpses they've all melted I even touched them they were sticky and slippery My dad's face was just pale, as expected. An old fox is always cunning. My dad composed himself and stared at my mom. I know they have set their sights on my mom. My mom didn't know it at all. I pity her but I won't save her, if I were there. The three of them would definitely kill me first to fill their stomachs. I turned off the display screen. The screen of my phone lit up. I saw the new text message on my phone and stood up excitedly. Great, it's finally coming to an end. It was a message from the authorities. The authorities had found a solution. Dylan's old phone didn't have a SIM card, so it couldn't receive the text message. A few days later, I turned on the surveillance again, unexpectedly. The situation took an unexpected turn. I've worked so hard for this family, for you, and this is how you treat me, Mom, even if you sacrifice for us and this family one more time. I tilted my head and didn't look any further. I didn't hear the imagined cries. After a while, there was a knocking on the door. Mom, open the door. That's right, open the door. My dad and Dylan pounded on the door fiercely. My mom rummaged through the small room. The two of them started banging on the door again. The two of them, who had been hungry for a long time, couldn't open the door. Dylan found the man's axe. Dad, get out of the way. Damn it, I don't believe I can't chop this broken door open today. After the two of them went in, they didn't say anything and sat on the ground quietly. Dylan couldn't help but break the silence first. Dad, is there any way to save Mom? She took paraquat and sleeping pills. Even the gods can't save her. Then. Shut up, your mom is. You only think about yourself. If we don't do this, Mom will die in vain. Dylan's voice got quieter and quieter. My dad held my mom's hand and looked at her in silence. Dylan thought my dad agreed with his statement and moved closer to my mom. When my dad saw that Dylan still didn't give up and his hand was still reaching towards my mom, "You ungrateful wretch, get away." Dylan was pushed down by my dad unexpectedly and fell to the ground. Dylan couldn't get up from the pain for a while. Dad, come here. Why is there a drone and a bag of cat food here? Hearing this, my dad forgot about being sad and also crouched on the ground and looked under the bed. He reached out and took up the drone and the expired cat food under the bed. The two of them wolfed down the half bag of cat food. Jojo exhaled towards the windowsill, and at the same time, shouts came from downstairs. Everyone, listen, we are from the official search and rescue team. If you want to, you can join us for the rescue. We provide food and accommodation. I saw the certificates they showed in the surveillance. They were from the real authorities. Fine, I'm going to meet my dear family. 12. Dad, what are you thinking about? It's creepy at night. Sigh. I always dream of your mom recently. Her eyes were bleeding, and she said she would come back to find us sooner or later. At this time, the door was knocked on. My dad and Dylan were both startled. Dylan summoned up his courage and asked, "Who is it?" "We are from the search and rescue team. We're here to save everyone. Now we need to register the number of people." With a creak, the door was opened. "Why did it take you so long to, brother? Are you okay?" I stepped forward and closed the door behind me. "Dad, it's Harper." I raised my hand to greet them. "Dad, good evening. Have you eaten? It's really rare that you didn't starve to death." My dad didn't dare to say a word. Dylan rushed towards me with his fists raised. I sidestepped to avoid him and stabbed him in both kidneys. He made the first move, and this is just self-defense on my part. "Where's Mom?" My dad was still talking nonsense at this moment. "She's dead, and it's all because of you, you unfilial daughter." I wiped the blood off the knife. And a whistle came from outside. "Team 2, assemble." When it was my turn to summarize, I said, "Report to the captain. There's no one alive in the room. I didn't kill them, but it's hard to say whether they survived or not in the end." I followed the team to continue the search and rescue in the city. I saw countless disgusting things during this time. After a month, the search and rescue of the whole city was over. I changed my name to Nora and moved forward towards a vibrant future. I'm no longer the Jiaonan that my parents expected. "Nora, are you really not going to the next city with us?" I shook my head and said, "Maybe later, but not now. I'll go when the order is restored. Then remember to find me when the time comes." "Okay, have a safe journey." I waved to my comrades, drove home to feed Jojo. Jojo became more and more clingy. Many years later, the city became more prosperous. Because I stayed back then, I got a good job and served the people. Jojo was still with me, but it was too old to move. As for my family, I burned their bodies and threw the ashes in the countryside fields that they were so proud of, where they passed things down from father to son and not to daughters. 13. Extra. I'm going to die now. I don't know why Mom left me behind. Maybe it's because I'm black and I'm not her favorite. There's a human who seems to want to save me. Unfortunately, my life is almost gone. She's really wasting her efforts. When I opened my eyes, I was wrapped up tightly. It doesn't matter, anyway. I'm going to die. I still have 3 lives left. A week later. I was really saved by this human. Fine, human, I owe you my life. I will definitely pay you back in the future. This human took me back to her home. It's small and dark. She also told me that she would be my mom from now on. I don't care. Summer has arrived. There are so many bugs. It's so noisy. I'm going to catch them all. It's definitely not because the bugs are disturbing my mom's sleep. I'm waiting at the door for my mom to come back from hunting. This way, she can see the bugs I caught for her as soon as she comes in. I stared at my mom expectantly. She ate them all. I'll catch more next time. I'll catch a mouse. She will definitely like it. I used to think that my mom was the only one who was good to me in this family, but in my last life, she was the first one who suggested leaving me in the hotel. Great. I was just thinking that it's getting hotter and it's hard to catch mice. When my mom comes back, I will definitely catch a mouse and give it to her. I was lucky today. I caught a mouse quickly. I put it at the door. My mom will definitely be happy when she comes back and sees it. I'm so awesome. It turned from dawn to dusk, and my mom still didn't come back. Could she have died of heat while hunting? When I woke up, the air conditioner at home turned off by itself. It's so hot. The mouse is almost going bad. I'll eat it for my mom. I'll catch a bigger one for her next time. It's so hot. It's getting brighter and hotter. I'm so sleepy and uncomfortable. I imitated my mom and pressed that round thing. When my mom presses that thing, a strong wind comes. Why doesn't it work when I press it? It seems that I'm going to die again. My mom will definitely come to save me this time. My mom is here. I knew she would come to save me. I meowed and fell asleep peacefully. I found that I lost another life. My mom actually didn't save me. I'm angry. I turned around and looked at my body. When I saw my mom crying, I realized that my mom was dead too. It turns out that it's not that my mom didn't save me, but that she couldn't. I'll reluctantly forgive her. Seeing her crying so sadly, I anxiously found the big cat who controls the lives of us cats. The big cat asked me, "Are you sure? You'll lose one more life if you do this." I said affirmatively. "Big cat, I'm sure. I don't want to see my mom crying." The big cat was helpless. With a wave of its paw, I went back to my mom's small and dark home. I ran to the door and waited for my mom to come back again. I saw my mom come back with a lot of prey. "Jojo, mom is back."